There are memories that remain crystal clear even after more than a decade, like when Demian was just 25, the first time he set foot on the battlefield, the first moment he had to take a life, the instant when blood fell on the tiled floor in thick red drops, and then the time he wiped out over 2,000 enemy soldiers. And then his breath grew faint. Finally, his body collapsed, and after that, the screen cut to a morning scene at City Hall. The red-haired boy with a cold face looked over the contract. Opposite him was a middle-aged man, and another man babbling non-stop. The gist being that all of his parents' insurance money would be managed by this uncle. If you've checked the documents carefully, please sign here. Pucker feigned kindness to urge his nephew. Yes, Demian, the papers are just formalities, really. Just put your pen down and it's all settled. The smug man propped his chin and coaxed him. Rest assured and leave everything to your uncle. When you come of age, I'll return every penny without fail. Demian's fingers tightened on the paper as he remembered that day which had completely upended his life. Demian decisively tore the contract to pieces and coldly announced, I'll only accept the insurance payout through the Imperial Bank, and it must be solely in my name. Pucker stared in shock as the scraps flew about. What is this? Demian added indifferently and add a special clause. Without my signature, proof, or documents, no one else may withdraw the funds under any circumstance. His gaze was firm and unyielding, as if allowing no refusal. Pucker's hands trembled with fury. He flew into a rage, grabbing Demian by the collar and shouting, what the hell are you doing, you brat? Just sign and stop causing trouble. Expecting him to back down, Pucker misjudged. Demian curled his lip and mused I was worried he'd pretend to be kind and let it slide. Before Pucker could finish scolding about what kind of stunt this was, a punch swung and sent him crashing and tumbling across the floor. Demian approved with satisfaction. Thanks, uncle, for still keeping that vile face exactly as I remembered. As he turned to Dalek, the man recoiled in panic. Dalek frantically rummaged through his briefcase for supplemental clauses that could be added right away. The situation momentarily sent Demian into thought. If it had been before, when he was only 13, he could have done nothing, but he smiled in triumph. Now it's fine because he had been reborn back into the past, returning to the time of his previous life. Demian alone had to drag his exhausted body across battlefields strewn with corpses. He panted heavily and cursed under his breath. Damn it. I told you from the start, this was a suicidal campaign. Demian was then the captain of the Baroque Kingdom's punitive unit, grinding his teeth in frustration. How could 100 men possibly defeat over 2,000? Suddenly he spat blood. His vision began to blur. Demian weakly reached out toward a fallen soldier. He closed the man's eyes so he could go in peace, remorse flooding his mind. Even though the campaign ultimately succeeded, Demian sank to his knees in despair before his comrade's corpse and murmured, I'm sorry. If only I'd been stronger then, I would have protected everyone. He slammed his fist hard on the ground in frustration. Damn it. Demian staggered, clutching his side. His body seemed unable to hold out much longer. His form swayed in the air, and he thought to himself that he was probably about to die. A dirty steel helmet was tossed into a corner. Demian lay there helplessly, surrendering his life to fate. He raised a hand to shield his eyes, which were about to overflow with emotion. Maybe it's because he's dying that his mind conjures up all sorts of thoughts. If only I'd joined the army earlier, not waited until 25, things might have been different. A hot tear rolled down his cheek. Demian bit his lip just once more. If only heaven would give me another chance. I swear I'll make the battlefield ours with these brothers, but now it's too late. In his memories of his previous life, Demian had taken his last breath. He had thought he died then, but luckily a miracle happened, and unexpectedly Demian returned to the past, and it was 17 years earlier. He looked at his two smooth hands that had never faced life and death. Then he lifted his shirt to examine his small belly. The mana core located in the lower abdomen is the most important thing for martial generals who cultivate magic. Unlike in his previous life, Demian's current mana core was still intact. In this life he could learn to master mana on his own. Yet Demian remained unsettled. In his last life, after his old uncle swindled away the insurance money and kicked him out, he had to live in hiding and do all sorts of menial jobs in the underworld. An orphan abandoned by his guardian like him had even gone to prison to take the fall for a gang official's crime. He thought his life was over when he was forced into the army and pushed onto the battlefield. Yet someone like him still got this day. Demian dumbly let himself fall onto the soft bed. Who would have thought he'd one day rise to the rank of captain? He concluded boredly, but in the end I still croaked. While Demian was lost in tangled thoughts, soft footsteps suddenly came from outside. After all his time in the military was, he cautiously sprang up from the bed An uninvited guest. Demian warily grabbed the knife from under his pillow. The other person slowly pushed the doorknob. The moment the door cracked open, Demian burst out like a wild animal with a knife. The assassins all startled. What the hell? He drove the blade hard into the nearest man's thigh. When the man screamed in pain, he immediately pulled the knife out. Damn, he'd only managed to stab halfway in. The remaining assassin reacted quickly and, howling like a madman, charged. "You bastard, I'll kill you." Demian nimbly dodged the first thrust. The crazed assassin tried to stab again. He bent down and successfully evaded it, then delivered a slash into the flesh of the man's leg. A bloodthirsty, sharp light flashed in Demian's eyes. "Who sent you here?" The two strangers lay sprawled on the ground, wailing painfully. Each had been stabbed once in the thigh. Demian grabbed the collar of the remaining one, then raised his knife to question him. "Were you sent by Pucker?" When he saw the man refuse to answer, he punched him right away and demanded, "I'm asking, was Pucker the one who sent you?" Mid-action, Demian suddenly heard from afar someone talking trash about him. "This brat is really terrifying." He turned and saw someone approaching. Muckman, who strode in like he owned the place and said aloud, "Have I introduced myself yet?" He thought to himself, Muckman showing up here means they were handling that scrappy stranger, but saw something better and sent him out instead. Demian smirked and began to tell the story. Well then, 17 years ago at that time, in the alley of a small street, Demian was grabbed by a group of strangers. He screamed and struggled violently, "Let me go, it hurts." Even though I hid deep in this slum, I still got caught right away. How strange. They kicked him hard, handcuffed him, and took him away. Demian kept Pucker's greedy face in his mind and realized his capture. This whole thing had been Pucker's plan. The more he spoke, the harder Demian pressed the knife into the man's body. He slowly stood up. Pointing the knife at Muckman, he said, "You bastard dare to betray me." Muckman's eyes returned his gaze, filled with an indescribable hatred. Without another word, the man lunged forward. Demian reacted quickly and dodged one of his attacks. His speed even shocked Muckman a little. His calm demeanor made Muckman shiver. Demian thought in disgust, was Muckman really this weak? No matter how fast Muckman was, he couldn't touch so much as a hair on Demian's leg. He felt proud. "I've got an extraordinary ability." After striking and missing so much it gets annoying, Muckman shouted, "You brat." While Demian thought, after thousands of beatings and dying and coming back hundreds of times, I began to see through every move of an opponent. Impatience was obvious in the man's eyes. At the moment an enemy prepared an attack from his gaze. Demian read every gesture of Muckman, the direction he placed his foot, the twist of his waist, waiting for the movement at the shoulder. He had predicted the attack 10 seconds in advance, so he dodged more smoothly than a dancer. All revealed clearly. He was going to strike the head. Muckman fumed in rage, unable to act. The more agitated the man became, the easier Demian was to read. This little rat is too obvious. Luckily, he grabbed Muckman's wrist. The sword was flung far away. Without his weapon, Muckman lost the advantage. He wanted to blow up this whole castle and be done with it, but now it's hopeless, you bastard. A stab to the flank left Muckman unable to fight back. He couldn't believe it. No way, he looked like just a kid. How could he be capable of this? Annoyed, Demian pulled his knife out, intending to make him suffer to death. Muckman could only look up and moan. Clearly, he's only 13. With the coolest expression he'd ever worn, he asked, "Want to know how I parried that?" Demian proudly raised the knife. "Nothing special. It's just that I saw exactly where you intended to strike. The moment you lifted your hand, I predicted it all." Muckman's face was now ashen. After hearing that he wanted to vomit blood, what an absurd nonsense. Before he could say more, Demian pointed the knife at his face and said, "Believe it or not, it's the truth." With his last bit of strength, "I'll scare you a little," Muckman began a psychological ploy. "You think I'm the only one if this gets out to the others. And unfortunately, they meet stubborn kid Demian who's harder than stone. You're about to die here. How could this possibly be spread around?" Instead, Demian took the chance to probe for information. "You're not stupid. Surely you know what to do. Were you sent by Pucker?" Muckman, like the others before him, refused to utter a single word. Demian said half jokingly, half seriously to get a straight answer, "Unless you want to be crippled for life." He still couldn't believe his eyes. Those looks belonged to a 13-year-old. Demian's bloodshot eyes made the man recoil in terror. Finally, Muckman admitted, "Yes, it was Pucker who hired me to come here." Demian shouted for him to shut up. "Okay, that's enough." Muckman still didn't understand what was happening. "What the—" Then a basic slash like chopping vegetables. His throat was cut as if the man were a chicken being butchered. Demian turned away coldly. "Right, even if we leave, we still have to clean up the mess properly." He thought to himself, "Living to 30, one thing I've learned is to minimize making enemies. But if you happen to already have enemies, you lock their bodies in a room and stomp them until they never rise again." At a small house deep in the woods, Monto checked his watch and guessed, By now they must be done over there. Pucker seemed pissed at Demian. Bastard, come here, Monta's still proud. Once it's done, I'll drag him here, don't worry, sir. He told him, you sent me to grab a kid, and even had to call me in. You must be furious. Pucker slammed his fist on the table, his face bruised. Because of that bastard From excitement, he felt a sharp pang in his head. Wait, he stopped talking and reassured him it would be handled immediately. Sir, just wait a little longer. Don't use my slight delay as an excuse to dock my pay. Just then, there was the sound of a door being pushed open. Monto intended to arrive soon. Pucker was anxious. I'd like to tear him apart right now, but there's that insurance contract. He thought angrily, once that contract is settled, I'll deal with that brat properly. As soon as the door opened, a thrown knife flew in. Monto's face fell. What's going on? The knife stuck into the ground. Pucker was terrified at the sight. Monto sensed something wrong. Have we failed? Demian entered confidently. He asked, You're Demian? The boy replied friendly, yes, the lackey. Being called a lackey made Monto a bit puzzled. Demian glared at him and said, Aren't you the lackey of that fat pig standing behind you? That's why you obediently do his bidding. Monto shouted Pucker. He brazenly stole the man's money. I need to triple my fee, Pucker roared, triple it. While negotiating with Pucker, given our heavy losses, that's only fair. He drew his sword, ready to deal with Demian. Monto's years of observational skill in the trade told him. Do you see the bloodstain on the end of that club? He raised his sword and faced Demian without a trace of fear. Looks like there's an unexpected variable in play. Pucker's face drained of blood. The price is enough to make his heart clench, but tripling it. Sensing that hesitation, Monto feigns impatience and sheathes his blade. Fine, I'll withdraw. Seeing that, Pucker panics. Wait a minute. Pucker stands frozen, eyes full of doubt and fear as he stares at Demian opposite him. A dense, murderous pressure radiates from Demian's body, so suffocating it seems to squeeze the air out of the room. After a fierce internal struggle, he grits his teeth and decides. I'll pay triple. Though it pains him to lose such a sum, he has no choice. If Monto walks, we're dead. Seeing his extortion succeed perfectly, Monto flashes a smug smile and seals the deal. He puts on an innocent face and shrugs as if above the fray. My men were handled, but I hold no personal grudge, just business. Demian looks at him coldly without bothering to be polite. I do hold a grudge. Because of you lot, their savage shouts still ring in my ears, this brat. When I catch you, it's a guaranteed death. The pain that ripped through bone and soul back then, Demian would die before forgetting it. Half his past life was living like trash in the slums, and on top of that, his mana core was shattered. From that dark moment, he vowed to himself to take revenge at any cost. Do you think I'd just let it go? His hand tightens on the spear, so don't ask why die. Being sneered at by some kid wounded Monto's pride deeply. This sulky brat. The spear's sharp tip suddenly redirects, pointing straight at the most private spot between his legs. This vicious move horrifies him. He won't step another inch. This dog aims for my groin, definitely not to be underestimated. Demian immediately takes a fighting stance, both hands gripping the spear shaft in a straight line. The clash of weapons rings and screeches, echoing painfully off the four walls of the room. Facing a barrage of sword strikes, Demian is forced to retreat repeatedly to break the pincer attack. Sensing his opponent's defense, Monto resorts to trickery at the exact moment Demian worries about protecting his face. The perfect victory scenario is sketched and fantasized in his head. I'll chop his thigh to pieces. His other arm shifts, gripping the blade to prepare a finishing, lethal strike. Just as he planned, Demian tilts his head slightly to the side to dodge the direct blow. He channels all his strength and thrusts the sword straight at Demian's thigh. This is the real move. But what happens next veers completely off course, making Monto's heart skip a beat. With a single light step and a graceful footwork shift, Demian easily slips past the tip of the sword. The trick is using the right-hand dagger as the attack. Demian uses the butt of the spear to strike one after another. The vital pressure points across the man's body. He casually glances at the stunned man and taunts. I knew it all along. Monto's jaw clenches with an audible grind. Damn it, you little brat. Veins on his forehead and temples twitch violently, saliva flying as he snarls like a beast. I'll kill you. But before the threat finishes, a sudden excruciating pain rips through him, stopping his throat cold. The pressure points Demian struck suddenly tear open. Monto's strength drains away. He stares coldly at the defeated man collapsing at his feet. You're stronger than the likes of Muckman, sure, but you're still just a street thug in the end. After clearing the obstacle in his path, he finally turns his gaze to the true target of this trip. Witnessing the horrifying scene, Pucker trembles uncontrollably. Demian, listen to me, let me explain. Ignoring the useless pleas, he steps forward, one deliberate step at a time. The fear of imminent death robs him of reason. He flails his hands in panic. Don't come any closer. A pitiful scream echoes through the dense forest and dissolves into the silent night. Sometime after that bloody night, in a quiet office, a voice rings out. "Mr. Demian, I'll deposit a total of 6 platinum and 650 gold into your account." The first thing Demian does after cleaning up is collect the insurance money. He checks the terms carefully and replies in a low voice, "Understood." After completing the paperwork, he stands, bows politely, and says, "Thank you." The man opposite places a hand over his chest and bows slightly in respect. "Yes, thank you for entrusting this to us." Watching his retreating back, the man hesitates, as if weighing something, then ventures to ask, "May I ask where you're headed next? Your carriage looks like you're going far away." Demian doesn't bother to hide his plans. "I'm enlisting." The blunt answer catches him off guard. "Enlist? You heard right, because I have some people to meet." On the deserted dirt road with few passers-by, only the steady thump of the carriage wheels breaks the silence. Demian sits inside the carriage, watching the scenery recede behind him. Thinking of the past, a nostalgic smile tugs at his lips. My comrades are there, true, but the army is the only place I truly belong. After all, in just 5 years, the situation will change completely. Most able-bodied young men will be conscripted. An unavoidable era of chaotic war is approaching. Demian slowly places a hand over his chest as the excruciating pain of his past life washes over him. Now the shattered mana core in the slums won't happen again. Before deciding to enlist, he spent a long time weighing things carefully. Rather than waiting until a late, regretful 25, volunteering young makes far more sense. First, he'll go to the capital to train with the Delft Mana operation method for a week, then apply to training camp number 3. Demian looks up, eyes deep at the wide sky through the carriage window. This time I won't be spun around by the times like a top. He vows to smash the chains of fate himself and take control. A week later, the capital's sturdy walls and towering watchtowers finally come into view. The spear tips, wrapped in coarse cloth, strike the wooden targets with dull, booming thuds. The soldiers and onlookers can't hide their surprise. Where did that kid learn spear techniques? He still looks wet behind the ears, after all. Demian pays no mind to their whispers, his whole focus fixed on every spear stroke. He pulls the spear back and looks down at his palm, once soft, now torn from overexertion. "Should I bandage this?" he mutters helplessly. Clearly his body is still too green. Demian feels annoyed and ill at ease with his current weakness, a world apart from the calloused hands he once had. A man who'd been watching can't keep patient any longer. He clears his throat and starts a conversation. "Are you here to apply as a soldier?" Demian stops, turns politely. "Yes, that's correct." Raven skips the formalities and gets straight to it. "Your spear style looks solid. Where did you learn it?" A flash of high alert crosses Demian's mind. Did this guy recognize First Kingdom spear technique? First Kingdom spear technique sounds a bit funny, but it's the most common spear method among the kingdom's soldiers. His quick mind scrambles for a plausible cover. "It's a method my late father taught me." Raven feels he's overstepped into family matters. "My bad for asking, apologies." Demian stands firm, radiating upright, resolute bearing. "No problem, sir. My father was proud of the army, so I was influenced to enlist." His composed manners and noble ideals score full points with Raven. "You're accepted." Demian blinks in surprise and asks for confirmation. "Yes." Raven startles, realizing he just let something slip. "No, I misspoke." To save face, he awkwardly steers the talk elsewhere. "So what's your name?" Demian straightens into military posture, one hand behind his hip, and announces crisply, "I'm Demian." Raven smiles approvingly, slaps his shoulder as encouragement. "All right, good luck to you." Watching his retreating back, Demian bows slightly and calls after him, "Yes, thank you." No sooner has the place quieted than Demian suddenly freezes. He feels a warm, steady heat rising from his dantian, spreading through his body. This feeling, Demian can't hide his joy and breaks into a thrilled smile. Now I can use mana. The Delft Mana accumulation method, a technique crafted by a Delft genius 15 years hence, has brutally strict entry requirements, but is famed as the most effective ever. Familiar, warm memories from his past life flash through his mind. Back then my mana core was shattered, so I risked everything practicing this, clinging to a slim hope it would work. The image of his comrade Darian returns. Scratching his head, he grumbled, "Captain, why do you chase that training method?" Even Bergen beside him shrugged. He doesn't even use mana right. Teased by his men, Demian shoots them a sharp glare to scare them off. "What, you little brats?" A light breeze across the training yard snaps him back. "Yeah, I used to get teased, but it paid off. The appearance of mana halves my worries. Now I just need to pass the test." Demian stops training and scans the vast yard with his eyes. He spots a group gathered and strolls toward them, wondering if one of them might have been at training camp number 3 with him back then. Demian smiles at the thought of his old battle brother, eager, wonder how he looks now. In the wide training ground, The recruits are arranged in neat horizontal rows. The first test is to lift a boulder. Sounds simple, but hoisting a 30 kg rock above your head isn't easy. It's a brilliant way to weed out the rookies full of empty enthusiasm. Demian gathers every ounce of strength, channeling power into his arms to hoist the heavy stone overhead. Come on, the attendant jots it down and proclaims loudly. Candidate Demian passes. A few beads of sweat trace his cheek, but Demian's face doesn't change. Once you hit 1-star mana, this challenge is child's play. And so the first test ends. Next up is... Gappo takes a deep breath and with his thunderous voice bellows to the whole ground. Next, the second test. Demian, dwarfed by the broad-shouldered soldiers, falls silent to listen. The endurance run officially begins. Gappo briefly explains the rules. Time limit is 1 hour 30 minutes. You must finish the course before time's up. Shoulder bumps and minor scrapes are allowed, but you must not attack one another. Having known this rule from his past life, Demian immediately sees the hidden scheme. Because of that rule, proctors will surely be mixed in running with the crowd. Sure enough, a glance around reveals a few people with a different bearing. Gappo ends his speech with a sharp warning. Anyone who leaves the designated course will be disqualified immediately. Remember that. Not only is he unfazed, a sly smile tugs at Demian's lips. This test might actually be fun. A bright red chalk line is drawn on the ground to mark the starting line. As Demian warms up, a youth suddenly approaches. Are we in the same group? He halts and scans around as if to confirm me. The other nods eagerly. Yes, you, I've been watching you. Demian wonders about the boy's real motive. Watching me, why? He studies him silently. Wait, his face looks familiar. Before Demian can dig through his memory, Appel steps closer. You still asking? He lowers his voice to a whisper in Demian's ear. You know how to use mana, right? Demian edges back a step to keep a safe distance, quickly analyzing the situation. No law forbids commoners from using mana, but commoners who can usually have either a wealthy clan backing them or some special force behind them. Studying the boy's refined features, a thought pops into Demian's head. Could this be the name to confirm his suspicion? Without beating around the bush, he asks, "What's your name?" Appel, surprised, points to his nose. My name. He quickly regains composure, places a hand over his chest, and announces boldly, I'm Appel. Though he'd half expected it, Demian is still shaken. Appel, was he really from this training camp? The man who became a grand general and was titled Count at 30, a legend among legends. The name strikes Demian from his past life like a thunderclap. He was one of the most successful common-born figures in history, admired by all. Appel offers his hand to make friends. There aren't many our age here, I'm getting bored, let's work hard together. Once he learns of Appel's glorious future, Demian's guard melts away. All right, he reaches out and clasps Appel's waiting hand. Well, he's being friendly, no point being prickly. After all candidates finish warming up, Gappo grabs the megaphone. Everyone prepare. The moment the starting horn blares, hundreds of people surge forward. In just a few short breaths, Demian, keeping a moderate pace, is overtaken by the group behind him. Seeing their long strides and wind-slicing speed, he thinks to himself, they're going all out from the start. The other runners belatedly notice something odd about the leaders. What the hell are they doing? The disguised proctors have formed a solid wall, running abreast to block the contestants. Move it. Those behind strain to catch up while chattering. Looks like that's the wall of wailing. Rumor has it you only face the real test if you get past it. Appel runs alongside Demian and puzzled asks, so can't we just tail them and sprint past at the last minute? Demian keeps his breathing steady. It's a clever tactic, but he suddenly stamps his foot hard and rockets forward like an arrow loosed from a bow. Too bad that's not my style. Demian's sudden, audacious burst of speed shocks Appel beside him. At the head, the proctors maintain a steady, unhurried pace. Conserve your strength. The real race starts in the final 10 minutes. Yes, sir, understood. Black's keen ears pick up the pounding footsteps closing in from behind. At this rate, we'll be at the finish in no time. Startled, he whips his head around and sees a small figure barreling past. What crazy kid is that? Giant is distracted by the rapid footsteps. Another reckless kid this year. Black warns preemptively to avoid accidents. Don't hurt him, just scare him a bit. He rubs the rippling muscles in his arm with a sly grin. Can't promise what'll happen when he runs into my iron shoulder, but I'll try to go easy. Before his smug smile fades, a small hand shoots up from behind, grips his shoulder blade and shoves hard. Move aside. Giant freezes for a beat. What? Demian cleverly uses his shove as leverage, springing off his shoulder to leave the proctors in the dust. They'd been lax for merely a second, and he's already pulled a good distance ahead. When they snap back, Black screams in panic. What are you doing? Stop him. The other proctors immediately come to their senses. Yes, sir. Without turning, Demian can still feel their heavy footsteps closing in. Proctors really do have the edge in skill, but still. He inhales again, floods his legs with power to accelerate and widen the gap. They're just proctors from a training camp after all. Witnessing his daring breakaway, Appel behind can't help but laugh out loud. What's gotten into this kid, who knows? His fighting spirit is fired up by Demian's move. I can't let him get ahead that easily. Appel stamps his foot and rockets past the lagging contestants to chase Demian's retreating figure. The ordinary contestants watching are stunned. What, that's allowed? Let's follow him, yeah, just copy what he's doing. When the proctors turn, they're horrified to see a surging wave of runners charging at them. What the hell is this? The contestants' rousing shouts carry across to the other training ground. Zion, hearing the commotion, turns in confusion and curiosity. Something's up at training ground too. Zulk, having heard some rumors, whispers, apparently a strange new recruit just enlisted. Should we send more proctors? While the two hesitate, a deep authoritative voice cuts in. Leave them be. They snap to attention and salute in unison. Head proctor Rabin. He looks toward the noise and asks coolly, do you want people thinking we're rigging the exam results? Whether they break through depends on their own mettle. Watching the small figure leading the other track, Rabin adds flatly, and so it is with those who fail. After all, my eye for people isn't wrong. He thinks with quiet satisfaction. Didn't expect he'd be the kind to create such an unpredictable variable. His actions spurred the others to surge forward. On the battlefield, those who lead the purge are the ones who know how to spark fires like that. On the track, Demian feels every muscle nearing its breaking point. This is lap 29 of 30. He pours his last reserves into crossing the red marker line, the final sprint. Appel, with astonishing stamina, is right on his heels. Hey, Demian. He glances over, momentarily distracted while chatting. You look strangely energetic. Appel leans in, whispering with curiosity. Was this your plan from the start? Demian isn't sure what layers lie behind the question. What do you mean? Appel gestures toward the other contestants collapsed in a heap by the track. If we didn't know how to use mana, we'd be as pathetic as them. Demian forces his breathing steady, a grin twitching. If you've got a trump card, why not play it? Appel grows more intrigued by his new friend. You're quite the interesting fellow. As they talk, the two of them cross the finish line of the final lap together. You two. The official at the finish is still stunned, finally manages to say, both of you pass. In a quiet, paperwork-filled room, an excited question rings out. I heard an interesting kid just entered training camp 3. Not far off, Casson clasps his hands behind his back and confirms seriously. Yes, trainer Rabin contacted me about that boy. He said the kid's only 13. The news instantly grabs the listener's attention. He puts his hand on the table and stands. If picky Rabin even praises the kid as interesting. He pauses briefly, weighing the value of that assessment. Now you've piqued my curiosity. Leonhardt narrows his eyes, emitting quiet pressure, and asks, so what's the child's name? At the same time, a crowd gathers at the tall building, as if drawn by something intriguing. In the courtyard, a huge notice board stands. After reading it, someone clutches their head and curses. Damn, how did I fail? No way, what about you? Amid the lamenting are many who can't hide their joy. I passed, I finally saw this. Demian wonders, is that really worth celebrating so much? The scene pulls him back to the harsh times of his past life. During war conscription, everyone tried to dodge duty, checking if their soles and heels were blistered to escape service. In the noisy atmosphere, he strokes his chin, pondering, actually times are peaceful now, peacefully boring. Suddenly someone calls his name, Demian. He turns at the sound, puzzled. Appel waves enthusiastically. Congrats, we're in the same intake now, right? The words make Demian glance at the notice board. Really? You passed too? Appel nods. Yes, I checked the list, your name's there. While talking, he casually points to the very top of the board, right at the top. Demian, 13 years old. He nods, I just saw it. After surviving the fierce selection together, the mood between them loosens up. Help each other out if needed. Still, we might not be assigned to the same unit. Faced with that enthusiasm, he stays calm and replies, I'm looking forward to it too. Leaving the crowded area, Appel remembers something and asks, there's a week until enlistment. What are you doing until then? Demian doesn't answer at once, thinks for a few seconds, then says slowly, I'll be pretty busy. He gazes into the distance and adds with a hint of meaning, I have a few things to settle this week. Appel's curiosity is instantly piqued. He steps closer and slaps a hand on his shoulder. What could be that important? Demian just shakes his head. Nothing big, just need to buy some essentials before camp. He suddenly remembers something important and hurriedly adds, oh right, those issued combat boots are rigid. They say you must prepare insoles for the soles and heels. This info makes him go, oh really? These things aren't new to Demian. He learned them the hard way in his past life, but to avoid exposing anything odd about his current identity, he replies sincerely anyway, "Thanks, I'll keep that in mind." Appel grins widely, "No need to thank me." Not wanting the chat to stay about himself, he steers the topic back. "What about you? What will you do this week?" The unexpected question makes Appel pause. "Me, I have a few things to take care of too." Seeing his awkward expression, Demian realizes he's hiding something. "Are you sure?" But Demian doesn't pry, not interested in poking into others' affairs. "All right, take care of your stuff. See you next week, I'm off." He waves farewell and Appel replies, "Yeah, see you soon." Just then, a stranger quietly approaches from behind. Only a few steps away, the person finally speaks slowly. "Who's that?" Hearing a familiar voice, Appel turns. He involuntarily recalls their earlier conversation. "Demian, why do you want to join the military?" This surprises him a bit. "Huh." Seeing that reaction, Alan continues explaining what's been bothering him. "If you can use mana at that level, you don't look ordinary at all." Hearing that, Demian glances sideways and retorts offhand, "You're subtly boasting that you're not ordinary either." That blunt comeback makes Appel give an awkward smile. Does it really sound like that? The footsteps keep echoing on the ground. After a few beats of silence, he answers, "Because this is the only place I belong." Remembering the exchange, Appel's mouth twitches into a smile. Him too, he must have his own hard-to-say troubles. Then he turns and thinks to himself that he has a feeling he'll keep running into this person for a long time. Alan looks puzzled. "What?" But Alan just shakes his head with no intention of explaining further. "Nothing, let's go." The old man bows respectfully and replies, "Yes, young master, the supplies are ready over there." That familiar title makes Appel freeze and sigh in annoyance. "Alan, I told you not to call me young master in places like this already." The old man follows with a guilty tone. "Yes, I'm sorry." Bright sunlight bathes the rooftops along the busy street. Amid the constant flow of people, Demian strolls and scans his surroundings again and again. Hard to believe. Lively haggling mixes with laughter to create a vibrant atmosphere. "Can't you do something for me?" "Oh my God, I told you I was doomed." He's a little stunned. The capital in his memories used to be. In an instant, images of hollow-faced, starving townsfolk and their weak pleas flood back. "Please, even a dry crust of bread will do." Looking at the bustling street, Demian quietly calculates, "This atmosphere will change within 5 years. Before then, I have to prepare as much as possible." As soon as that thought appears, plans reorder themselves. First, I need to find the Weak Merchant Guild. When an era of war breaks out, weapons, practical artifacts, and food on the battlefield become the most valuable things. That's when the role of merchant guilds becomes central. This suddenly reminds Demian of something. In the past, the wealthiest guild on the continent was Weak, among rolling mountain ranges stretching to the horizon. A military unit sets up camp to rest after days of marching. The quiet is broken when a soldier comes running from afar. "Captain, I think relief supplies are being brought over there." Looking toward an approaching convoy of wagons, someone asks in surprise, "Is that the Weak Guild?" Tyson glances and says slowly, "People say they're the absurdly rich guild right now." This comment immediately annoys the man beside him. "Damn it. While our side bleeds on the battlefield, they're over there." But before the complaint goes further, Demian cuts in. "Without the wheat and weapons they sell, you'd think they're just donating everything for free, right?" He looks embarrassed. "I know, it's just a bit bitter to see." As he says that, his gaze shifts to the wagons piled high with supplies. Constantly making huge charitable donations isn't exactly easy. Putting that aside, Demian calls out to his comrades. "Everyone, come collect the relief supplies." Acknowledged replies ring out across the camp. Standing there watching, Demian quietly follows each person happily taking food and needed supplies. While everyone is busy, Ethan approaches from behind and suddenly says, "Captain, that person seems to be the owner of the Weak Guild." He immediately looks where Ethan points and confirms, "The guildmaster." Ethan points to the man directing the wagons. "See the one in the white cloak at the front." But the fellow looks like a slimy bastard. As awareness returns to the present, the harsh sunlight still stretches down the street. Leaning against a wall, Demian quietly reorganizes what he knows. They say Weak was doing charity even before the war started. Of the 40 guilds in the capital, narrowing the field leaves maybe 7 candidates. Since they're into charity too, I'll start checking the larger-scale guilds first. As the last rays of the day sink below the horizon, an amber glow slowly spreads over the city. After a day wandering everywhere, Demian stops before the door of a guild at the end of the street. Is this the last one? With that thought, he steps over the threshold and enters. Is anyone here? No sooner has he called than Weak steps forward slowly from inside. "How can I help you?" At a glance, Demian concludes this really is the last one. He bows and speaks politely. I heard the Hamel Guild does charity, and I'd like to discuss investing in a good cause. The reply makes the man laugh with interest. A young person with such thoughts is commendable. As he is led to the tea table, Demian thinks, so far it's all junk, but I still have to check each one. Sitting down slowly, he smiles kindly and introduces himself. I am the owner of the Hamel Guild, Weak. At the name, Demian can't help but blink. Weak. On the outside, he stays calm, but inside waves churn. Finally, I found him, huh? Swallowing the thoughts spinning in his head, he answers quickly, yes, my name is Demian. The man nods and gestures to the chair opposite. Ah, pleased to meet you. Let's sit and talk more. No sooner seated than Demian can't hold back and blurts out. This might be impolite to ask, but do you have any sons? That question leaves Weak somewhat puzzled. Huh. He studies him for a few seconds, then bursts into hearty laughter. I have no son, but I do have a daughter who's still immature. This surprises him, a daughter. What the is this pity turning into another trick? No sooner said than an unexpected voice rings out, drawing Demian's attention back. The sudden call makes Demian turn reflexively. Dad, I'm home. Dial steps in, and he immediately recognizes her as the Weak guildmaster from his previous life. So you found her, huh? Weak points to her and introduces. Greet her, child, this is Demian. He's come to invest in our charity fund. Dial tucks a strand of hair back and smiles. Hello, Master Demian. She looks eager and asks, so you're here to invest in our charity work? Demian looks up and replies, yes, that's right. He rubs his chin, thinking to himself something's off. The previous Weak was clearly a man, yet these two look identical and their ages match. Demian studies Dial closely. Don't tell me this pretty face is actually a daughter. How did she inherit the Weak name to run the guild? She regards him seriously and asks, may I ask how much you intend to invest? The guild will use funds differently depending on the amount. He raises a fist to his mouth and says gently, for now I want to invest 300 gold coins. Depending on how things go, I'll put in more later. Dial startles and covers her mouth. 300 gold. Weak can't believe it either and double checks. You are serious. His eyes narrow and he raises a hand inquisitively. But if this is an investment and not a donation, do you have any specific conditions in return for that money? Demian smiles brightly, hands clasped as he states his terms. I want to hold a share of Hamel Guild stock, receiving a portion of profits to recoup my investment. Weak stares at him, exclaiming in amazement. Quite the bold kid to play like that. He thinks silently, at that age with that much money, could it be? Then cautiously asks, if you don't mind, may I ask the source of these funds? Demian closes his eyes and, indifferent, replies, you needn't worry about that. I just want to use my late parents' inheritance for something useful. Weak bows his head and quickly apologizes. I understand, sorry for my rudeness. Demian smiles and waves it off. No problem at all, I understand completely. He looks straight at Demian and requests, we'll need to hold a meeting about guild shares. Can we give you a definite answer then? Demian, unbothered, agrees. Sure, see you all later. As Dial is about to leave, she sees Weak clutching his chest in thought. What's wrong, father? He recalls Demian's mature manner in negotiation. Aren't you amazed? The boy is only 13. Weak can't help but think back. The look in his eyes wasn't a joke. He's certainly not an ordinary child. He folds his arms and sighs. What a pity. If the boy were about 5 years older, they'd make a perfect match. Dial hears this and turns betrayed, shouting, oh, father. An embarrassed voice rings out inside the building. What the heck are you saying, father? Weak shrugs it off and teases with a smile. Maybe the boy prefers older people, who knows? Dial shouts angrily, cut it out, father. After finishing business with the Hamel Guild, time flew like a dog across a field. In the blink of an eye, enlistment day arrived, and Demian stood alone before the great gates. He lifts his head and exclaims, today really is a completely new beginning. Demian raises a hand toward the sun above. Even if my past life vanished into smoke for nothing, this life will be different. Then he clenches his fist with determination. This time I'll be the one to swallow the entire empire. After a while, Demian carries his luggage into the room. His unit is assigned to Training Company 3, 1st Platoon, right. He looks around again and sees no familiar faces. Appel must have been assigned to another platoon. Demian sets his luggage on the bed and murmurs to himself. It's a shame. I'm the only one here my age. Just then an excited voice rings out and he looks over. Nice to meet you all. A man stands with hands on his hips at the door and announces, I'll be in charge of you for the next month. I'm Brian, platoon leader of 1st Platoon. Then Brian holds up 3 fingers and counts off. We'll start inspecting personal gear now. Food, water. His face darkens as he folds the 3 fingers into a fist, threatening luxury items. Anyone carrying alcohol or tobacco, step forward and confess now. If I catch you hiding things, you'll get to taste a very entertaining punishment. Demian watches the bunkmates panic and protest they quit smoking but grabbed the wrong pack. The shopkeeper said bringing wine wouldn't be noticed. He glances that way and sighs. Idiots, if you're going to buy it, hide it properly, otherwise don't bring your carcass along. Brian walks over, cold-voiced and loud. Dump everything out of your bags. After a moment, he stands before Demian's bed, looks at the luggage pile and declares, nothing suspicious here. Brian strokes his chin, leans over and asks, hey, how old are you? You look so green behind the ears. Demian answers calmly, I'm 13. The news makes him jump 13. Kyle on the top bunk yells angrily, damn, what time is this? Now they're even letting brats into the army. Logan snorts, you think life's a joke, kid. He sees Demian glance over and darkens. What are you staring at? Gonna mouth off, you little brat. He immediately closes his eyes, thinking there's no point wasting words on scum like him, but Demian's eyes flash bright red as he stares at Kyle. I'll remember this face. I'll make him feel how painful it is to be pummeled by a kid. Logan beside him hugs himself, shivering. What the suddenly my spine's freezing. Brian's voice rings out, you there. He walks up to him and orders, empty your rucksack now. Logan panics and explains, this is everything, sir. Brian's expression darkens as he leans in close and asks, do I need to personally rummage through your bag? Logan frantically pulls everything from his pack. No need, sir, I'll dump it out right here, this and also. He stands with hands on hips and coldly threatens. Consider this your warning. If anyone hides items that I have to personally dig out, there will be consequences. The others, thinking of Brian's words, go pale and brace themselves to vanish around the training ground all night. He urges those around him, hurry up and dump it all out. Demian watches, greatly pleased, serves those fools right. After a while, Brian paces with hands on hips and declares, that concludes the gear inspection. He turns to the group and announces, now I need to appoint a temporary student platoon leader to command the troops when I'm absent. Brian reaches into his pocket and pulls out a sheet of paper to check. The moment he sees the paper, he gasps out loud. There's a recruit in this platoon with sky-high scores. After dropping the paper, Brian looks at the group and calls out, Demian, who is Demian, step forward. His gaze falls on Kyle, who scowls in the corner. Wasn't that the guy from earlier? Being student platoon leader requires character as much as ability. Brian walks up to him and asks, you're Demian, right? At that moment, Demian steps forward, it's me. He hears this and spins around in surprise, not that guy. Then who is it? When Brian sees him, he gapes, frozen in place. He clutches the paper, stammers a question. Did you say you're only 13? Demian calmly confirms, yes, that's right. Kyle, hearing that, fumes and taunts loudly. What, a brat like that wants to be student platoon leader? For real, when did the army turn into daycare? Brian stands with hands on hips and snaps, order over in that corner. Kyle still protests, but what's wrong with what I said, sir? Kyle stands and takes slow steps to Brian, arguing, the student platoon leader represents you. Shouldn't they prove leadership ability? Then he points a finger at Demian with contempt. Letting a squirt like that take charge will wreck our platoon's discipline. The corner of Demian's mouth lifts into a smile. I'm not exactly itching for that troublesome post, but this guy sure likes stirring up trouble. Then Demian quietly decides, fine, I'll play this out and teach him a lesson. He tilts his head and sneers provocatively. I'm confident I can do better than a brawny empty head. All muscle, no brain, absolutely. Kyle, enraged, yells, you little brat, what did you just say? Brian glances and asks, your name is Kyle, right? He answers calmly, yes, sir, I'll keep the post for now. Then Brian reaches out and gently grabs Kyle by the collar. Brian radiates menace, glaring at him and snarling, if you dare belittle a comrade again by calling them a brat or anything like that. Next time it won't stop at a warning, understood? Kyle looks up from below at Brian's stern face. Yes, sir, understood. Then Brian looks to Demian. Yet what he said isn't without merit. The student platoon leader's role requires real leadership ability. Kyle raises a hand and proposes, so how about this, sir, why not? He folds his arms arrogantly in front of Demian and says, why not let me and this kid fight? Winner gets the post. That would prove both skill and authority, right? Brian looks at him and asks Demian, do you agree to this? Demian closes his eyes and thinks, while we're at it, might as well reset the unit's discipline. All right, fine, bring it on. Then he points at Kyle and says, so just smash this nuthead to paste, right? Kyle, furious, retorts, nuthead. Brian looks to the others in the room. Do you all agree to this wager? They all answer in unison, agree. He leads the group out quickly. No need for long speeches then. Follow me to the drill yard for the contest. Brian eyes Kyle's arrogant posture and Demian's calm face and declares, the match starts immediately. Brian looks between Kyle and Demian and asks, rule as opponent yields. Fight stops immediately. Ready. He grins smugly and says, I'm ready. Demian closes his eyes, nods, and says, I'm ready. Brian's voice rings out, then the match begins. Kyle rubs his shoulder with his other hand and mutters that bullying a kid makes him feel a bit guilty. Demian sighs and urges, cut the whining and get in here, you clod. A vein pops on his forehead as he roars in rage. You little brat. Kyle's eyes flash and a bright red light shoots out. The reason you're getting smashed like a dog today is your mouth. Demian stays still and judges silently. This guy's speed is better than I thought. Compared to the soldiers from my past life, he's actually got some guts. He watches Kyle's figure close in right in front of him. Demian fixes his gaze on the fist before him, thinking to himself it's only that much. Then he leans and jumps aside to dodge. No way you're hitting me. Kyle can't believe what he sees. He dodged. It's like you knew exactly where my punch would go. Then he gathers his strength for another blow. Looks like he picked up a few tricks somewhere. But this one you won't dodge. Demian tilts his head and easily dodges again. Too slow. Kyle loudly claps his fists together and says, if you dodge this, I'll ram my whole body into you. Then he lunges with all his might toward where Demian stands. He closes his eyes and senses Kyle's two hands coming. He brushes past again. Angry, Kyle yells, what kind of move was that? Demian's voice comes from behind, here. Immediately after, Kyle emits a pained cry as Demian lands a hit on his chest. Demian looks up at Kyle, thinking that taking a direct hit like that makes it hard to stay standing. He watches Kyle cry out, prop himself up with one hand on the ground to steady himself. Tougher than I thought. Kyle's face turns sullen as he crazily charges over. You bastard, I'll kill you. Demian jumps back to evade his attack, thinking this should finish him, then throws a punch straight into Kyle's gut. Demian watches him clutch his stomach and fall to the ground. Bingo. Kyle's head slams hard onto the ground, and he's knocked out on the spot. Demian casually brushes dust off his hands. Looks like this clod's finished then. He scans the crowd with a murderous look. Anyone else want to try? Logan and the others exchange glances. Still, no one dares step up. Then Brian's voice announces, training match over. Recruit Demian wins. From now on, Recruit Demian is officially the student platoon leader. Later, Kyle walks out of the infirmary and gently closes the door. I'll go ahead. He thinks to himself with annoyance. Never imagined I'd be carried into the infirmary unconscious like this. Kyle can't help replaying that punch. He can't remember what happened after getting hit in the right ribs. Did he lose consciousness from that first hit of the kid? Kyle stands at the door lost in thought. I thought no one here could be my match, yet I lost so miserably. The people in the room startle and watch him push the door open with a dark expression. They probe toward Kyle and whisper, what now? Should we stop him? We have to stop him. Otherwise, he'll be back in the infirmary again. Suddenly, Kyle walks behind them and calls out, making Demian look over. He drops to his knees, bows his head respectfully, and cries out, I admit defeat. From now on, I'll regard you as my big brother. Demian freezes, astonished, thinking, what the hell was he suddenly acting like that? Did I accidentally clock his head just now? Then Kyle looks up and says seriously, you're the youngest person I've ever fought, yet the strongest. Respecting someone stronger than you is only right. Kyle's voice rings out, please accept me as your subordinate. Demian is surprised, thought he was some rude hotshot, turns out he's got manners. Then Demian holds out a hand to reconcile, no need to call me big brother. Just call me Demian. Demian smiles brightly and adds, let's do our best from now on, Kyle. Kyle reaches out and clasps his hand. I'm looking forward to fighting alongside you too, Demian. A week at the barracks flies by quickly after Demian's crew enlists. Brian plants his hands on his hips and yells at the runners, don't stop. Stare at the back of the person ahead and keep running. Demian can't help but muse the trainer's brutal drills make time fly like the wind. When everyone finishes running, Brian raises his hand and announces, training's over. Soldiers dismissed to your tents, Demian, come with me. He hears this and follows him warily. What's up? Why drag me along all of a sudden? Demian follows Brian to a suspicious-looking room. Administration. Are they going to make an announcement? He sees people lined up neatly inside and wonders, hey, those guys are here too. Demian steps inside to hear what they're announcing before deciding what to do. Mason spots him covering his mouth and exclaims, where did this peppercorn kid come from? Damn, I blurted that out. Should have kept it to myself. Demian looks up. The guy's scrawny as a toad. In his head, he pictures it. This guy next to Kyle would be hilarious. The two bodies are worlds apart. Mason, irritated, grits his teeth and asks what he's staring at. Demian replies calmly, I'm just curious how wide those eye sockets can open. As Mason shouts in anger, he suddenly hears a dry cough and stops. This brat. Casson frowns and shouts for order, settle down. Is this a place for you to cause a ruckus? Mason, furious, whispers a threat. I'll deal with you later. Above, a voice continues. It seems all platoon leaders and their soldiers are gathered here. Casson looks straight at the crowd and says, "The reason I've called you here today is to announce the interplatoon matches next week. This is a crucial midterm evaluation for the platoons, so platoon leaders and soldiers, lead your units and prepare well, understood." The soldiers below clasp their hands behind their backs and reply in unison, "Understood, sir." Casson tells everyone to disperse. "All right, dismiss to your tents." Mason walks up beside Demian and shouts, "Hey, you brat." He raises a fist and threatens loudly, "You little runt, don't watch where you're going. Watch out or you'll get beaten to paste." Gerard, trailing behind, sneers, "You're the one who doesn't watch where you're going. Both of you are student platoon leaders. Acting high and mighty because you're older won't help. Instead of squawking here, why not train with your platoon leader? Isn't that better?" Mason, fuming, spins around and snaps, "This ain't your business. Go somewhere else. Unless you want a beating too." Gerard smiles and replies, "We shall see who gets beaten, won't we?" Then he gestures toward Demian, saying, "Forget that lunatic, let's go." You chimes in, "All right, let's go." Demian walks ahead and snorts contemptuously. He turns and asks, "Which platoon are you from?" Mason thumbs his chest arrogantly and says, "Platoon 4. I'm the platoon leader of 4. A smile twitches on Demian's lips. "Fine, I'll remember that. See you at the platoon match, dummy." As they walk down the corridor, Gerard asks, "You're Demian, right?" Surprised, you ask how he knows your name. Gerard grins and explains, "I heard it non-stop from that appel in my platoon. Heard you placed first in practical skills." He looks at Demian and formally introduces himself. "I'm Private Gerard, platoon leader of 3. The upcoming platoon match will rely on your ability." You, hands on hips, reply, "It's nothing." Back in the room, Demian shouts sternly, "Attention, everyone." Kyle stands and walks over asking, "What's up, Demian?" Demian's voice rings out, "In a week there's an interplatoon match between the platoons and us." He thinks of that victory flag and declares, "We must grab first place at all costs." Demian claps once and adds, "One thing you must remember. Of the 3 teams we're facing." He spreads both arms and announces, "We will utterly crush Platoon 4, especially." Demian makes a throat-cutting motion with his thumb and orders, "Your platoon leader in 4 must beat that guy to a pulp, got it?" Demian watches the crowd and thinks, "As we enter week 2 of training, the atmosphere on the drill ground has totally changed." The commander, serious-faced, stares at the papers in his hands and says the Army's goal is to win the matches. "And from this week you'll learn formations, crucial for competition." The squinty man looks down at the troops and reminds them, "Though this is a team event, we'll still award extra points to soldiers who show outstanding skill, so perform well." The troops reply in unison, "Yes, sir." Demian can't help thinking, extra points? Nice. Who in training doesn't want high scores to get assigned to the unit they want? A smile creeps onto his lips as he thinks happily, "I'll just give it my all and see what happens." Lalan waves his hand through the air and says, "Today we'll learn the triangular formation, an attacking formation used to punch through enemy lines." Demian thinks, the triangle formation, huh? Information pops into his head. This formation has massive striking power, like a giant arrow, but its weakness is if the spearhead collapses, the rear will disintegrate too. Demian glances at Kyle beside him. Still, if the lead man is strong enough, it creates destructive power. Luckily, we've got someone perfect to be the spearhead. Then Lalan clasps his hands behind his back and announces, "We'll practice the triangular formation now. Split into 2 groups and form triangles quickly, move." Demian tells Kyle, "You go over there, I'll command this side." He snorts coldly, "This time I won't lose." He steps in front of the group and waves slightly. "All right, everyone come here. I'll show you a trick for the triangular formation the trainer just taught." Kristen, suspicious, asks what trick and if you've done this before. Demian calmly replies, "My father served in the army, so I learned it." The crowd leans in as he begins to explain. The others will certainly form the triangle exactly as the trainer said, and when they surge forward, Adrian balls his fist and shouts, "Listen up, you rolling dumplings." Kristen raises his fist too, grinning, "Let's give it a try." Hearing that, Demian puts his hands on his hips and calls out, "You big guys stand right behind me, and the shorter ones take the outer shield padding." He grips the shield, looks back and reminds them, "Keep the shield up at least a head height." The group answers in unison, "Got it." Demian looks up at the opposite side. They seem to be preparing their defense thoroughly, but whatever they do is pointless. He concludes calmly, "We just drive straight through," then looks back and orders, "Don't slow down, finish it in 1 charge." Lalan also raises his hand and commands, "Match start." A shout sounds left foot, an excited chant left foot. The clamor rings across the field. Demian glances over and smiles slightly, thinking first time and they're holding formation well, advancing without breaking ranks. His brows knit tightly. Okay, closing on Kyle's formation, then loudly urges everyone to speed up. On the other side, Kyle's crew marches in step, shouting left without stop. A purple glow blooms around Demian. He thinks it's his turn. During conditioning, he didn't bother using mana for endurance. He muses inwardly that sometimes you have to pull it out and use it. Then he lets out a shout. He slams his shield hard against Kyle's and pushes forward. Demian drives the shield with force, excitedly barking orders, push hard, carve into the gap just like the plan. He calculates inwardly that if they hit the weak spot instead of charging straight at bodies, the enemy will falter a bit. And at that moment a voice cries out, "Who's stopping him?" Demian's eyes light up as he stares to the rear. "I'll handle it." He watches the gap formed and shouts, "Opportunities here." Immediately, long staves from Demian's side strike the knees of the opponents simultaneously. Logan is toppled backwards, startled and shocked. What the hell was that? Kyle turns to the collapsing ranks and yells, "What are you doing? Get up now." He swivels back this way and snarls, "Damn it, I'm dealing with you first." Then Demian rams his shield hard forward. "Kyle, did you forget who your opponent is?" Kyle's face darkens and he growls coldly, "Move aside, Demian." Hearing that, Demian raises his shield to brace and asks, "You want me to move aside?" He replies seriously, "Yes, as soon as you appeared beside me, shout out." Huh. After that, he lightly uses force to shove down, sending Kyle sprawling. From above, Demian looks down laughing. "Kyle, nice physique. But you need to learn to use your strength at the right time and place." Lawlin stands watching the combat there. "That kid's better than I thought by a lot." He stares at Demian's slight frame. No standout build. It's hard to believe he's the same rookie batch as the others. Then Lawlin spreads his arms and declares, "That's enough. The winning team in this drill is Demian's team." Demian raises his hand in praise. "Well done, Kyle. Take my hand and get up." Kyle says, "Next time I'll definitely beat you." Then he asks, "Hey Demian, what tactic was that?" People behind Kyle also demand, "Did you deliberately aim for our weak spot? How are we supposed to block that?" The crowd around him noises up, "Hey Demian, should we just use that trick in the inter-squad match, like earlier?" The sunset drenches the place. Demian watches Kyle and Logan training nearby. These guys usually bolt back to camp right after drills, and now they're sitting down reviewing and practicing together. A corner of his mouth lifts into a smile, thinking this vibe is good, keep this momentum, and we don't need to worry about the tournament. Suddenly a shrill voice rings out. That brat is actually Platoon 1's squad leader. Demian emits a questioning sound and looks over. Hayden points this way and shouts, "Look, he's standing there commanding the drills over there." Aston jeers, "What's wrong with those people? Who would ever listen to a brat as boss?" Logan, face dark with anger, glares and growls at those dogs. "What did you just say, brat?" Shivo snaps back irritated, "You bastards." Hayden spreads his arms to provoke more, "Hey, kid's kid. What's wrong with that?" Aston laughs along. "You can tell how trash that squad's skill level is just by looking." Mason steps out from behind, sneering, "Forget them. It's not the followers' fault. It's that punk who bit off more than he can chew, making himself squad leader." Demian looks over and mutters under his breath, "Of course it's that guy again. Does he just love getting hit or what?" Then he shakes his head lightly, "Whatever, no point getting riled by tiny pests. Anyway, we'll crush them in the tournament." He calmly orders Platoon 1 dismiss back to camp. Suddenly a loud voice snaps, "What the hell are you barking about, you dogs?" Demian looks up and is stunned by the scene before him. Logan's furious crew rushes forward, shouting loudly, "If you meet my squad in the tournament, you're dead meat, you scum. Just wait for us to come and smash you to pieces." Kyle points at Mason, fired up, declaring especially that squinty-eyed guy at the front, "Better start preparing your coffins." Then he fumes, turning to ask Demian, "Those bastards you just insulted are from Platoon 4, right?" You startle and confirm, "Huh, oh yeah, that's right." Kyle and the others stare at the group, clapping their fists together. "Those bastards. We'll beat them into paste for sure." Immediately the group gets fired up and shouts, "Even during break, we'll keep training. When we face Platoon 4, I'll wipe the floor with them." Demian looks at them, thinking, "I didn't know these guys were so easily provoked, but maybe." He can't help grinning. This is tasty. This should be fun. That evening inside Morris's office, he folds his arms, leans back and asks, "Have you spotted any promising rookies among this batch?" Rabin reports seriously, "Sir, yes. There are a few with potential, but two in particular stand out." Morris immediately grabs the file and reads, "Both are quite young. What's special about them?" Rabin replies, "I'm not entirely sure, but it seems they already know how to control mana." He's startled and asks again, "Mana? Do those two rookies come from notable families?" Rabin stands at attention and answers, "Apparently there's nothing remarkable about their backgrounds, sir." Morris lowers his head, thinking, Most applicants to the training camp are commoners, and mana training methods cost a fortune, so to ordinary folk mana feels like some distant mystical power. He stares at their records and mutters, Rookie Demian enlisted after losing both parents, and Rookie Appel's family is just as ordinary. It's their utter ordinariness that bothers me. Soon after, Maris looks up and asks, Hey, I heard there was a scuffle between platoons earlier. Raven closes his eyes and reports, Yes, sir. Actually, that commotion involved Rookie Demian. He's thinking of Mason's crew provoking him. Basically because Demian's still too young to be a student platoon leader. Raven recalls Logan's gang and adds that some platoon leaders and members looked down on him. But Platoon 1 flew into a rage, which actually tightened their unity. Maris hears this and can't help clarifying, so Platoon 1 accepted that kid as their leader. Raven bows his head and confirms, Yes, sir, that's right. Maris props his chin with one hand and says, Interesting. He raises a finger and gestures. If that's the case, let's try this plan. Raven leans in to hear Maris's full plan. After listening, Raven is startled and asks, Don't you think this might backfire? Maris props his head and smiles softly. If it does, then their abilities are only that much. Maris adds, thinking of Kyle's crew, If their cohesion is strong, it's worth testing once anyway, so. His eyes gleam greedily as he declares, Ramp up training for Platoon 1 and Platoon 4. Those troublemakers, push them to the max for me. Kyle's crew suddenly jump in surprise and turn to look back. What the? Why am I suddenly getting goosebumps all over? Inside a room, someone on a bed groans, Oh great, why are they adding more training hours all of a sudden? The person next to him says, I heard only our platoon and Platoon 4 got punished with extra drills. Carter remembers today's workout and grits his teeth. They even added crawling drills. Another guy grouses, being punished for a few curse words seems a bit much, doesn't it? Kyle glances back and asks Demian, Isn't this a bit unfair? You hear it and silently ponder, crawling drills. Demian closes his eyes, thinking he already knows their intentions, then says, Fair or not, what else can we do about it? He stands and walks toward the group, asking, You guys think I'm here on a vacation or what? Demian turns to them and says, These crawling drills will leave us sore, but if we get through them, our stamina will outclass the other platoons. Everyone gets the real purpose of this drill right. Shivo raises an eyebrow and mutters, Damn, even that kid thinks like that. Another can't help but think, if I complain here, I'd be worse off than a 13-year-old kid. Demian closes his eyes, chuckles and adds, The first time will hurt a bit, but I'll watch your backs, so give it your all. Then someone objects, But they're not going to make us crawl on that gravel-strewn field, are they? He looks up and asks, What, you want them to lay out soft cushions for you to roll on? Kyle, surprised, asks, Hey Demian, you sound like you've done this a lot before. Demian closes his eyes and thinks, Yeah, I've done it plenty. In his head, Demian recalls his past life, crawling on the ground countless times, just to keep himself alive. He then quietly sighs, But that's not the real point of the crawling drills. Demian can't help thinking about forcing crawling drills into an already exhausting training schedule, when everyone's bodies are already covered in scratches and bruises. Another grabs someone's collar and shouts, What did you just bark, you dog? Demian thinks quietly that everyone's tempers will flare and internal discord will surely start. He looks toward the group and contemplates that the true aim of adding this drill is to see who endures pressure better, Platoon 1 or Platoon 4. Demian squats by the foot of the bed, pulls out a trunk, since the plan is so obvious he won't sit still, and take it. Then loudly calls, Brothers, bring out all the issued gear and let's see what we've got. Darian asks suspiciously, Really? Why pull out the socks all of a sudden? What's that sound coming from you now? Demian grins brightly and yanks the socks free. I'll perform a little magic trick. These will be the talismans for today's drill. The next morning the trainer stares down and asks, Is Platoon 1 all assembled? Demian's crew answers loudly, Yes, sir, trainer. He looks down and introduces himself. All right, I'm Nielsen, the instructor in charge of your crawling drills. Today we'll learn low crawl technique. Assistants, take your positions. Nielsen clasps his hands behind his back and explains to the squad leader. Low crawl means you stay pressed to the ground. Keep your arms straight with the spear and move quickly by coordinating crossed hands and knees. Then he points at the netted area ahead and asks, Now you'll get across that obstacle course using this low crawl technique. Ready? Platoon 1 erupts. Ready? Yes, sir. Nielsen thinks inwardly, at least these guys still have some spirit, unlike those Platoon 4 losers. He grows serious and commands loudly, Group 1, clear the obstacle course for me. Go. Platoon 1 drops to the ground at the same time and quickly crawls under the netting. Nielsen closes his eyes, puzzled. It's only week 2 and they're already doing crawls. Normally that's week 4. What on earth is the company commander planning? He looks up at them and thinks, crawling on this terrain will be painful, not just tiring. They're going to struggle and keep tripping for sure. Suddenly, Nielsen's eyes widen as he's startled by the sight before him. Watching the group nearing the finish, he mutters in surprise. What the hell? What kind of insane speed are these guys sweeping the obstacles with? Nielsen's face darkens in bewilderment. What's going on? This is clearly their first time crawling. And a voice from the rear calls out, "Report, instructor." The man asks suspiciously, when does Group 2 go? Nielsen startles and points over, order given, Group 2, start. Platoon 1's members excitedly rush toward that wire netting. Nielsen looks back and forth and can't help thinking, what the heck is wrong with these guys? They look like a pack of battle-crazed maniacs starved for something. Demian cups his head with his hand and smiles. The instructor probably didn't expect us to be this smooth on day one. This is definitely the first time in his teaching career he's met a case like this. Kyle excitedly crawls out, "Damn, Demian, you're awesome." Another guy pipes up, "I even had to fake being all pained and exhausted earlier." That guy rolls up his sleeve and says excitedly, "Yeah, the terrain stings a bit, but this trick is a real lifesaver." Darian praises loudly, "Cut the socks into elbow and knee pads. Demian, you're a genius." Then Nielsen's voice announces, "Platoon 1's crawling exercise is complete. Dismiss and return to camp." Kyle glances over and asks, "Hey, Demian, where'd you learn that trick?" Demian doesn't turn around and replies, "From my late father, but it came with a warning." He asks, "What warning?" He smiles faintly and answers, "Never let the instructor catch you." Demian recalls the trainer's furious face. "You little brats think you're brave enough to pull tricks in front of me?" Everyone down and do 100 low crawl laps around the drill ground immediately. Kyle laughs and smacks his forehead. Truly a genius, called it right away. Demian turns and thinks to himself, why does that guy keep pulling such painful stunts? Maybe he's settling a personal score. He looks up at the nearby weapons and muses, "Anyway, we've only got shield drills and spear drills left. Finally, I'll learn the kingdom's top spear techniques." Demian recalls that image thoughtfully. The kingdom's top spear technique. Fools may sneer at it compared to the noble house's famed styles, but trained to its utmost, it's a peak art that rivals any school. He remembers his past life situation. The problem was most people learn only the basics and shelve it. In my last life, this spear art was my only turning point. Demian recalls that person's figure. I practiced it until I felt like I died and came back, finally gaining some decent skill, and only truly breaking through after meeting my master. The corner of his mouth twitches into a faint smile. "Master, I wonder if that old oddball is still as eccentric as before. Surely we'll meet again someday." Across from them, Platoon 4's crew noisily complain, crawling on that pile of sharp gravel. Are they crazy or what? Kyle looks up and says, "Looks like Platoon 4 just finished too, but those guys." Mason growls with fury, "You lot shut your mouths. Stop whining for me, will you?" Demian and Kyle are startled and surprised to hear that. The surrounding Platoon 4 members immediately shout in displeasure, "What did you just bark? You think being platoon leader makes you the big boss? Don't act like you're some veteran godfather." Carter laughs, looks like the other side's about to come to blows. Logan chimes in, "Without those pads, we'd probably be screaming at each other like that too." Kyle slaps his shoulder and laughs loudly, "Lucky indeed. Demian's pads saved our hides." Mason glares up, "Those dogs, they still have the nerve to sit there grinning." Hayden asks irritably, "They had to crawl just like we did, so why do they look perfectly fine?" Mason snarls, "I'll bet they cheated again. If it weren't for those brats, we'd never have been punished with these crawls." He clenches his fist and curses loudly, "You bastards. A few days until the interplatoon contest, and I'll crush every one of you." Mason's expression turns ferocious as he storms off to seize the top spot. Demian remains calm and faces him down. Time flies by in a flash, and finally the day of the interplatoon competition has arrived. The instructor looks down and asks, "Are all 4 platoons assembled?" The crowd answers in unison, "Yes, sir." His voice continues, "I'll call the platoons by the match schedule shortly. Everyone be ready." Kyle turns and calls out, "Demian." Demian looks back puzzled, "What's up?" He frowns and glances at Demian, asking, "You look different today. Or am I just imagining things?" Kyle's voice continues, "Something's definitely changed. I can't put my finger on it. Did you get taller? You're in that growth spurt age, right?" Logan behind him laughs excitedly, Kyle, Demian's always been tall." Someone next to him adds, "Yeah, he's just absurdly big, stop teasing him." Demian glances over, thinking angrily, does this guy sense things by instinct or what? An image from last night flashes in his mind. "Actually, I broke through to the 2nd tier of mana cultivation last night, so my mana reservoir has increased considerably." Demian thinks of that purple light covering him, and reflects that since coming to this training camp, Persistently practicing mana every day has finally paid off. Then he calls out loudly, making Kyle raise an eyebrow. Kyle. Demian says with dead seriousness, "At this inter-platoon tournament, I want our platoon to win in a completely overwhelming fashion." He thinks of the chance. The top 5 soldiers in the tournament get to pick any piece of gear they want from the armory. Demian bows his head in thought. Most people pick one-use defensive enchanted weapons or armor, but those are at best grade C. He clenches his fist thinking of a mother-of-pearl glowing ring. That's not my target. In my last life, I heard a guy from training Camp 3 mention it. Demian stares at it pensively. There's a ring with a truly sweet special power, an item with a continuous activation effect, so it must be at least grade A. He tightens his hand and muses that to snag it, he has to win this tournament and take first place. If Appel can also use mana to pre-select, the jerk might steal it from me. Then he looks up and asks, "You think we can do it?" Kyle chuckles and affirms, "Of course we can." Then he gives a loud, hearty clap. Kyle calls down to the guys below, "You hear that? Squad leader says we're going to totally roast this tournament." Everyone heard loud and clear, right? They roar back full of fighting spirit. "Hell yeah, first place is definitely ours." Kyle turns and says, "Looks like everyone's on board." Demian closes his eyes and smiles, "Perfect." Then the trainer's voice announces, "Now I'll announce the first match schedule of the platoon tournament. Platoon 1 step forward." Demian leads the way forward, grinning. "Onward to the peak of glory, brothers." As the platoons present themselves, the trainer loudly details the rules. The platoon tournament splits into attackers and defenders. After a round, they swap sides, 2 rounds total. The rookies' faces turn solemn as every word echoes. If attackers fail to seize the flag within the time limit, they lose. Platoon 2. And of course, Demian and Platoon 1 have no objections to that order. Prepare to attack first. After the briefing, he turns to his men and stresses each word. "Just do exactly like we practiced." They shout back in unison, loud and clear. Satisfied, Demian scans to the strongest rookie in the unit. "Kyle, you remember the plan, right? On my signal, you ram straight into the guys ahead with everything you've got." He grins and assures him, "Don't worry. When it comes to brute strength, I'm confident as hell." And once both sides form up, the trainer bellows at top volume. The match begins. As the attackers, Platoon 2 charges in a triangular formation at top speed. Crush them. The Shivo grips his wooden shield tight to brace for the impact and shouts, "Hold your positions. Do not let the formation break." Platoon 2 runs into unexpected trouble breaking through. The whole squad can't believe it. What the hell are these kids made of? There's not a gap anywhere, it's like a solid wall. Coaches watching from the high stand can't help commenting. So Platoon 2 attacks first, but Platoon 1's formation looks odd. Packed so tight you'd think they'd just stand there and take it. Then at the next moment, something weird happens. A rough shout rings out across the field and grabs the Lawlan's attention. "Push forward." It turns out the shout comes from Kyle, who is happily charging and overwhelming the opposing group. Platoon 2 panics, "We're getting pushed back." Alex, the flag bearer, growls down orders that sound almost pointless to troops pinned down and unable to lift their heads. "Hold your ground," I said, "hold your ground." His thin brows knit tighter with each roar. "You bastards, we're the attackers here, shut up and defend." But in the next moment, standing where he could see the whole field, Demian only shouted one word. "Cut." No long instructions needed, that alone flips his berserk switch. "This time I'm going all out, blood and all." Faced with that terrifying charge, Platoon 2's morale plunged to the abyss. What the hell, that monster? He isn't even using a shield. He's ramming with his shoulder. And because of that over-the-top charge, Demian's men had to speed up to catch their leader. Kyle yelled, "Push beside me." In the next instant, though Platoon 1 was nominally defending, they became the attackers as Kyle decisively broke into the enemy ranks and kept driving forward. Faced with this horrifying scene, even Alex went pale and gritted his teeth. How are they coordinating so perfectly? They've trained as much as we have, right? With sharp eyes, Demian seized the moment and shouted orders. They've exposed a weakness. Platoon 1, full assault. Without pause, a new ferocious assault erupted. White dust and smoke billowing into the white. Watching the unbelievable turn of events, Lawlan couldn't help stammering to Brian in charge of their squad. "What's going on, Platoon 1 leader? Did you make them do overtime training?" After hesitating, he replied, "I'm just as surprised." Panic swelled inside and sweat rolled down his cheek. Who knew those who only learned the basics would perform this well? Their level is indistinguishable from deeply trained elite troops. His gaze fell on the quiet figure behind the lively ranks. Of course, the reason they could do this was that kid. Now in Brian's eyes, Demian showed decisive command, issuing precise orders. "Spread out to create gaps. We have to smash Platoon 2's formation to pieces this round." Memories of catching them training replayed in his mind. Platoon 1 stayed late every day to practice, and Demian filled their weak spots. No wonder they're reaping the rewards now. Meanwhile, each of his men displayed the steadiness and drills he'd taught. Raise shields. Don't let them fall below shoulder height. Do exactly as Demian instructed. Seeing the positive results, Brian couldn't hide his excitement. At first, I worried a kid this young leading a student platoon wouldn't work, but he proved himself with raw ability. Spotting Alex in his sights, Demian decisively shouted, "Kyle, right now." Their mental link at its peak. Those few words made his intention crystal clear to him. Where's the flag? His teeth gleamed so white they could advertise toothpaste. Alex jumped in terror the moment he noticed, saw it right there. Panic surged so hard Alex got disoriented and sweat poured over him. Stop that guy now. No more attacking, just focus on stopping him. Unlike the near-collapse morale in Squad 2, Squad 1 still burned with terrifying zeal. Not yet, guys, assemble. Through the billowing white smoke, Kyle casually flashed an amused grin, "You idiots." The opponents were all stunned. Why did that ox of a guy suddenly freeze? The excitement on his lips never dipped for a second. You fell right into our trap. Their success caused no small alarm for the leaders. A trap, indeed. While they were still startled by the enemy's announcement, a figure stomped hard on the ground and surged forward like a gust of wind. With the small, nimble feet of a 13-year-old, the figure was none other than Demian. Agile as ever, nice work, Kyle. He launched his slight body into the air, his sharp eyes locked onto a single target. Before Alex could react, Demian's staff drove straight into the opponent's chest with such force it knocked him onto the rough ground. As the man howled in pain, the trainer spoke up at the right moment, "Time's up," because Squad 2 didn't seize the flag. Demian planted his foot on the enemy while striking a pose, hoisted the red flag high and declared triumphantly, "We win." And of course, after the rough match, the blue-haired coach couldn't resist adding, "Take a break, then swap sides." Those at the back couldn't help but marvel, truly awesome. At this rate, Squad 1 might run an unstoppable winning streak. But one person objected firmly, "No, not so fast, don't count on that." A finger wrapped in a red uniform glove pointed in one direction. "Look over there, skill like that." At that moment, the other two teams were still fiercely fighting. By his reckoning, won't there be a worthy opponent for Squad 1? Rage erupted like a volcano. A rookie stamped the ground crazily, "Damn it. Seriously, damn it, it's fate, isn't it?" Turns out a certain squad leader watching the tide turning against him. Squad 3, our first opponent. I only planned to warm up before crushing Squad 1 over there. With Hayden among the shield bearers, the brooding, furious one was none other than Mason. Why are these guys standing frozen like that? We've already lost our turn badly. If we lose this too, then. He couldn't hold back his pent-up anger and screamed, "Nonsense. What are you doing? Did you forget the plan? Do exactly what I said." Sure enough, the next second he drew a volley of mocking reproaches from his team. "If you're so great, then jump in and do it." What kind of leader hides behind lies all day? In Mason's mind, it was furious. Damn it. Teamwork sucks and nobody's motivated at all. Meanwhile, in Squad 3, Gerard as leader calmly asked the teen beside him, "Appel, those guys are tiring out. Should we charge and break their line?" He shook his head decisively in reply, "No need." The next moment, he calmly outlined the plan and his green pupils showed confidence. Hold position and target their shield bearers. Stall long enough and they'll fall apart on their own. He nodded in agreement to the opponent's words without objection. Though the boy was clearly younger. "Okay then, do it," thoughts churned. Appel didn't expect a 14-year-old to grasp the situation and the enemy's weakness so quickly. With his own sharp eyes, Gerard quickly formed a bunch of questions about the other's identity. "We've only met for 2 weeks, but I'm really curious about his background. This kid looks like a civilian, he can't be." But not to be distracted by that for long, he decisively issued the needed orders. "Everyone pile pressure onto their shield bearers for me. Hold formation and stay your ground." And so another brutal clash erupted again, with neither side giving an inch. Hayden, as leader, shouted defiantly with knitted brows, "You bastards. If you're so tough, then charge and fight. Stop wasting time with that cowardly stalling." But mere yelling was enough for Gerard to read the situation clearly. Squad 4's strength and morale hit rock bottom. The best scenario is they lose patience and rush in themselves. Contrary to his expectation, Hayden, who was loud a second ago, suddenly looked demoralized, frothing at the mouth. "I can't hold on any longer." Whatever the case, the signal came. Gerard bellowed the order to those before him, Squad 3. "The chance is now." The group tensed and charged to smash Squad 4's defense with force and a triumphant roar. No matter how exhausted they were, Hayden's team used their whole bodies as anchors to hold position. Don't fall if the shield bearers go down then. Unfortunately, things weren't that simple once Gerard turned and called Appel's name. No sooner had the order left his mouth Then Appel charged toward the layered shields. He stepped up without hesitation, clearly using them as a springboard made for this exact moment. Sure enough, in the next instant, Appel catapulted himself upward, mirroring what Demian had done minutes before, channeling a terrifying surge of magical force within him. He wasted no time focusing it into the staff in his hand. Using only his own strength, Appel easily sent Squad 4 sprawling in a shocking collapse. Watching from what he thought was a safe spot, Mason's brows knit in horror. What the hell are you useless lot doing? He couldn't even forget the bet with Demian, damn it. With moves like that, how can we possibly beat Squad 1? And at that moment, he caught sight of the relaxed figure of the boy out of the corner of his eye. Watching the unimpressive display from not too close nor too far, the boy sighed, it's over. Sure enough, the coach's voice followed. Practice match over, Squad 3 wins. Looking at the praised figure under the blue sky, Demian immediately judged that Appel guy is no joke. He's going to be a tough opponent. He turned his back and left decisively, thoughts shifting. The real fight will be against Squad 3 after all. A roaring, upgraded magical aura flared within him. A grin curved his lips with excitement, looking forward to it. See you in the final, Appel. After a break following the grueling matches, the coach announced. Break's over. All squads assemble on the training ground. As they moved forward, Kyle reminded the one beside him to confirm Demian, we're smashing Squad for this round, right? He replied flatly and bored, right. This is their last chance. They'll thrash around to salvage some dignity. Meanwhile, he beamed, a grin splitting his face ears to ear. That's the fun part, I'll beat the mouthy kid who called you a brat. Demian shrugged it off. I've already got my target. Kyle, just clear the way for me. Facing his subordinates, he listed the enemy's flaws without hesitation. Perfect. They're exhausted and poorly coordinated. Emanating such a sinister aura, the blue sky seemed to step aside. Demian enunciated each word coldly. I'm not holding back. We need to hit faster and harder, crush them flat this round. No sooner had his last word fallen than Kyle's crew burst with excitement, erupting in cheers. I've waited for this moment. Make them pay for mouthing off. After everyone shouted their excitement, he as leader immediately straightened and ordered, finish this clean and quick, so focus up, team. No one objected. Logan's group kept grins high and answered, understood loud and clear. And in the next moment, Squad 1 readied itself, each person blazing with energy and stern expressions. In contrast, Squad 4's troops were wary and shaken after just suffering a rather crushing loss to Squad 3. Not only highlighting the gap between the two forces, Demian, who held command, wore a face full of confidence, while Mason stayed irritable as if Demian owed him a few bucks. And with the coach's shout, the match began. Carrying Squad 1's terrifying momentum, they launched the attack with a thundering cry, "Charge, brothers." Soon the distance closed between them. Hold your formation as you push forward. Unlike when he only observed Squad 2 from the rear, Demian could now see Squad 4's execution up close and plan. Their formation looked much looser than he'd thought. With skill like this, just smash straight through and they'll break. A smug grin rose 45 degrees as he got into position, but it had to be thorough and flawless. I'll pulverize them into paste so nobody dares yap again. With near-perfect coordination, using the release force, Demian shoved the biggest guy, Kyle, forward. With just the two of them's strength combined, a fierce clash erupted between the opposing sides, and clearly Squad 4 suffered a heavy shock from the brutal gust Demian himself generated. What is this? What kind of freakish power is this? Always standing in the safest spot, Mason understood nothing beyond panicked shouting. What are those idiots doing? Brace your asses and hold the line. Useless bunch. Sweat poured from him like late autumn downpour. Shield bearers protect the flag, stop their direct assault. As for the spear team, unfortunately, while he kept jabbering, Kyle and Demian repeated the move they'd shown against Squad 2. In an instant, Mason flinched at the sight of him, suspended in midair over the wide open space. I said I'd remember your face, didn't I? It's you. Teeth clenched hard. The danger surged so fast, Mason stood there unsure how to react. Without any surprise, his right arm was casually disabled by the boy. By the time Demian landed lightly, Mason slumped over, his shoulders screaming in pain. However, rage overrode reason, and he ground out each hateful word through his teeth. You bastard. Don't think you're so great. True to his deep loathing for Demian, he didn't hesitate to pick up the wooden plank he dropped. You take me for some straw puppet. And in the next moment, Mason lunged as if Demian's earlier kick meant nothing. If this were a fair one-on-one, scum like you wouldn't be worth a rusty nail. He exhaled in utter disgust. To someone battle-hardened like Demian, Mason's attack was pathetic and predictable. He didn't even bother to prolong it, decisively grabbing the tip of the enemy's staff. Is that all you've got? Clearly, Mason didn't have the strength to hold onto even the last splinter of wood. He tossed the shield aside and casually put on a flashy staff performance, and just like that the weapon flew free. In the next moment, he didn't hesitate to land another blow on the wound he'd opened with that kick, kicking the enemy coolly, killing intent overflowing. Demian's mana poured out with every word. Dropping your weapon in the middle of the battlefield is basically begging to be killed. You idiot. Not content with mere threats, his fist tightened as he gathered mana. Remember today, etch it into your bones, consider this useful advice for your life. Giving the enemy no chance to counter, a heavy punch slammed into Mason's face as Demian spat two words, understand. Witnessing this terrifying scene, the coach couldn't stay still and rushed over. Squad 4 leader, are you okay? Mason gave a weary sigh, who knows how many times today, too easy, I'm bored. Meanwhile, the coach, having personally felt Demian's sharp, commanding gaze, hesitated and then spoke. He judged Squad 4 incapable of continuing the match. At that moment, Demian's hand was picking up the plank before what followed. Therefore, the victory in this match was beyond dispute. He raised the green flag high as Squad 1's coach declared it. Despite the rough fight, Kyle was still full of energy and laughed with delight, feeling great, and the other rookies were just as cheerful. Demian really is something top tier. Seeing Mason carried off on a stretcher by two people, Squad 4's members were truly terrified. Isn't Squad 1's leader supposed to be only 13? How is he this ridiculously skilled? From the high stand, someone couldn't help but remark, he's a born genius. Nielsen's verdict sounded even firmer. He might outclass some of our trainers. Rudolph beside him chuckled and nodded in agreement. I can't argue with that. Then, unexpectedly, a larger figure appeared nearby and raised a question. What's all the commotion, kids? This spectacle successfully drew his attention and bafflement. Standing before them was none other than Leonhard Belkylin, the head trainer of the kingdom's 3rd division. Recognizing who had arrived, no one dared delay. They straightened up respectfully. Greetings, glory to the kingdom. Ignoring pleasantries, Leonhard cut to the main point within sight. Brian, is that the kid you told me about? He looked at Demian, who was being hoisted by Squad 1 after the decisive win, and nodded in reply to his superior's question. Yes, that's him, sir. A faint smile of interest tugged Leonhardt's lips as he slowly said each word. It seems an intriguing factor has appeared. Time passed and the recruits went home. A youth suddenly burst into Squad 1's sleeping quarters, shouting, "Oh my God, the little bro." While chatting with teammates, Demian turned to ask, alarmed by Shivo's panic, "What's all the fuss?" Shivo quickly said it seems some big shot just visited our training camp. Recalling the scene he'd witnessed, Shivo was still shaken. Word was it was a hugely famous trainer from the 3rd division. That uncle is legendary among trainers. No wonder our teachers looked like they'd lost their wits. At the mention of that name, he sprang up and fired off a sensible question. The trainer from the 3rd division, what's his name? Rubbing his hair, he tried to recall and answered. I just heard it a moment ago and suddenly forgot. The name is. Demian's whole body and spirit jolted at the next line from the other side. Something like Leonhard, I think. Then in the next instant, he corrected the name that had been circling in his head, Leonhard. Sure enough, Shivo heard it and immediately nodded when mentioned. That's right, that name, Leonhard. Before he finished speaking, Demian darted past and made him jump in surprise. Demian, where are you going? He ran straight down the corridor. The squad leader's grim, urgent stride left Shivo puzzled. What's gotten into him all of a sudden? Meanwhile, Demian paid no attention to anything around him and focused only on the essential thought racing through his mind. I have to see him with my own eyes, if it's really him. Unbeknownst to Demian as he moved to find out, Leonhard was already closing the distance toward him from the opposite direction. His presence, of course, drew attention. Isn't that the soldier Demian mentioned earlier? Brian perked up at the sight and said happily, Demian, I was just about to look for you too. Then, unexpectedly, he closed the gap with both of them and performed a formal salute with perfect decorum. Glory to the kingdom. Faced with that salute, Leonhard calmly asked to confirm, Your name is Demian, right? Of course it was his name, so he didn't hesitate to answer. Yes, that's me. The air fell silent as he drifted into thought. The 3rd division is linked to training Camp 3, true. But that's so far away I thought it would be ages before I'd meet him. Whatever the case, Demian's joy at seeing the person closest to him from his past life was immeasurable. Long time no see, the most influential person in my life, master. In the long corridor, upon seeing Demian bow respectfully, Leonhard confirmed again, You're Demian? Outwardly composed, but inwardly intrigued. Old Stiff Raven has been praising the kid non-stop, so I had to see for myself. Sensing the mana flowing through the youth, he silently admired it. The boy's mana technique looks top-notch, doesn't it? He stroked his chin, appraising the youth from head to toe, then unexpectedly spoke. I watched earlier. Your combat mana is quite something. have you set your sights on any unit after graduation? At that question, Demian fell briefly into contemplation. Which unit do I want to join? His lips moved a few times as if arranging his words. I don't need to fuss or overthink it. He declared decisively, excitement on his face. I intend to join the Neo-Collies unit. That crisp answer echoed in the quiet air and made Leonhardt visibly startled. Are you serious? Because compared to other organizations, Neo-Collies in the 3rd Division is no joke. Their mission is to purge the monsters spilling out of the forest. It's the most dangerous, harsh place. Every year someone dies there. Knowing all that, Leonhardt grew more incredulous and curious at Demian's choice. Why rush into that place? People usually want comfy royal administrative posts, aren't those nicer? He fixed his eyes on him and spoke with unshakable resolve. Because only there can I become stronger. Hearing that determined reply, Leonhardt couldn't help but smile with delight. If you wish, I can write a recommendation letter to get you in. The nightly ranks comment caused Brian to gasp and hastily warn Trainer that place is reserved for nobility. Standing before a door countless people would trade everything to reach, Demian refused. I appreciate your offer, sir, but I've already decided. My goal is set. There's someone there I must meet. I came all the way to the 3rd Division just to find that man. Seeing the resolve in his words and choices, Leonhardt stopped trying to persuade him. If that's your decision, I won't stop you. Go rest. Before leaving, Brian couldn't help but look back at Demian and complain. This kid, do you know you just passed up a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Knights usually only accept nobles, but a trainer's recommendation changes everything. He immediately turned to Leonhardt with a pleading look, begging for a chance for the 13-year-old. Trainer, I think Demian is too young to understand what he just gave up. Let me try to talk some sense into him. But instead of agreeing, Leonhardt surprised him by speaking up. Do you really think that kid chose the wrong path? While Brian fumbled for an answer, Leonhardt recalled Demian's expression when he refused the offer. Maybe you didn't see his eyes earlier. Saying that, he couldn't help but laugh with genuine amusement at the rare youth. Who knows where that kid came from, only 13, and already that composed, no joke. With that thought and a satisfied look still on his face, he cautioned, don't push him. Leave him be. As long as he's in the 3rd Division, we'll run into him again sooner or later. A day's rest passed, and the next morning it was Squad 1 versus Squad 3. Demian glanced at the opposing group and warned everyone, you saw yesterday, Squad 3 isn't easy to deal with. Pausing to get everyone's attention, he continued in a teasing tone. But I can guarantee one thing. At this point, no squad in this camp can give us trouble anymore. That bold claim instantly boosted the team's morale. Kyle shouted with delight, we're seriously strong now, aren't we? After 2 overwhelming wins, the squad's spirits were fired up. Demian curled his lip with determination. Crush them. Just do what we always do. No sooner had he finished than the coach's shout echoed across the open area. Squad 3 will attack first. The match begins. At the signal, Demian immediately raised his hand to command. Form up, focus. In seconds, the team formed a tight defensive formation, surprising Gerard. Isn't that the formation they used against Squad 4 yesterday? Appel watched closely and remarked. I admit it looks solid. Studying the human wall their squad had just built, he narrowed his eyes and stressed each word. Appel, you have a crucial role this round. You know what to do, right? Without further explanation, Appel just nodded. Yes. Under his coordination, Squad 3's members shifted and linked together into layered, sturdy ranks. Mount up. The command issued. Both sides immediately crashed into each other in brutal collision. Furrowing his brows, he instantly adjusted tactics. All of you charge. Watching that familiar control method, Gerard only slightly frowned, as he was startled to recognize the same old trick from yesterday. In that tense moment, he suddenly barked crisply, Appel now. At the command, those on the front line immediately split to the sides, leaving a wide corridor right through the formation. The sudden maneuver froze Demian for a moment, his gaze locked on the gap that opened. What the? They broke their own formation. What are they up to? Unlike the assault that needed a springboard yesterday, this time Appel shot forward at full speed down the newly opened path. In just a few breaths, he closed on his target and swung his staff straight at an opposing member. Events unfolded so fast that even Demian, who had the situation under control, froze for a moment. Seeing the plan work, Gerard seized the moment. Appel's punch landed, widen that gap and drive in now. At that instant, Kyle, built like a tank, dropped into a ready stance with his 2 shields. You think I'll just stand by and let you run wild? The charging assault, full of momentum, was halted by him alone, throwing them into chaos. What the hell is this bastard's freakish strength? Standing behind the lines, Demian quietly exhaled. With that sudden turn, thank goodness Kyle stopped that dangerous blow. Recalling the scene, he couldn't help but admire inwardly. That kid Appel's insane. One punch and he sent the shield bearer flying. Meanwhile, Appel on the other side watched Kyle and sighed. What kind of monster is that? He looks northern for sure, so why did he wander into training camp 3? Shoving that thought aside, there was a bigger concern. However it happened, this was getting troublesome. That muscle-bound guy had him locked on. Suddenly, the pre-match talk between Kyle and Demian flashed through his mind. Kyle, your only job is to mark Appel tightly. If you stop him, no one can break our formation. Hearing that name, he was puzzled. Who's Appel? He smiled slyly. You'll spot him at a glance. Back in the match, Kyle stood firm before the line like a wall, smirking confidently. Let's see what you're really made of. Seeing the obstacle unmoved, Gerard stepped forward slowly and asked, Appel, can you pierce through? Knowing it's no easy foe, he still wouldn't back down. You have to make it happen. By any means. Feeling the pressure from the opponent, Appel scanned his plan to find a way to break them. Raw brute force won't beat this guy. If that's the case, he slowly closed his eyes and channeled all his strength into the spear in his hands. There's only one way left. In the next instant, he shouted and launched himself into the air, aiming straight for Kyle. The weapon descended with terrifying force, but Kyle lifted his shield in time to block. The teammates behind burst out cheering. He blocked it. Our Kyle's the real deal. But to their surprise, a sly grin crept across Appel's lips. Fine, you like blocking, do you? With that thought, the spear surged again, strengthened by a flood of mana. Then I'll hammer you until you're nothing but paste. Gritting his teeth against each hammering blow, Kyle couldn't believe it. Damn, a kid Demian's age is this ridiculously strong. No sooner had he thought that than the shield in his hands cracked and shattered. Son of a... Retracting the spear, Appel poured his remaining strength into one final strike. This ends now. With nothing left to defend with, Kyle raised his hands before him and braced to receive the incoming blow. But at the moment when victory hung by a thread, a figure suddenly darted in from the side. Demian arrived just in time and used his mana-coated shield to stop Appel's attack. When he realized who was standing in front of him, he was surprised and called the other's name, Demian. Just as a new clash seemed about to ignite, an unexpected signal rang out across the sky. The sound made everyone stop and turn their attention toward its source. Standing in the center, the trainer quickly announced the result. Time's up. Since the attacking side, Squad 3, failed to seize the flag within the allotted time, Squad 3 loses. Hearing the verdict, Appel clenched his fist until it went white, utterly dissatisfied. That big brute blocked every single one of my strikes? Damn it, I thought we'd finish this quick. On the other side, Demian looked over at his friend, still breathing hard from the defense, and asked, Kyle, you okay? He replied slowly but loudly, Of course I'm fine. Demian paused a beat, then decided, sit out the second half and rest. This surprised him. Don't be ridiculous, I didn't break any bones, I'm fine. Still, to protect his teammate, Demian held to his word and stressed the importance. We've got 2 weeks of training left. If you worsen an injury here, forget graduating. Demian didn't stop there and quickly offered an alternative. Instead, you stand guard by the flag in the middle. That's the one job I trust only you with. If we lose the flag, it's on you. Kyle fell silent, then smiled softly, realizing Demian genuinely cared. So you want to save face for me and worry about me too? Besides, aren't we the attackers this round? Why are we suddenly talking about guarding the flag? Not wanting to prolong the back and forth, he decisively gripped the item handed to him and assured, Relax, I won't let anyone touch it. You go out there and smash them. After a short pause, the trainer's voice rang out again. Switch sides, Squad 1 prepare to attack. Before formations fully settled, Demian scanned his teammates' faces and cheered them on. I know everyone's exhausted, but this is the final match. Come on, team. We're on offense this round, so I'm not planning to stall the clock. His gaze sharpened and determination showed in every line of his face. 5 minutes. Demian turned to face the opposing formation with an ultra-serious expression. Of course, he wasn't the only one fired up. Squad 3 brimmed with fighting spirit as well. His voice carried again across the wide field in that teasing tone. We're gonna snatch their flag and seal the win in 5 minutes flat. Before the match officially began, Squad 1 and Squad 3 stood facing each other, spirits running high. Scanning the enemy ranks, Demian quietly tightened his resolve. Finally, the final match of the tournament was here. All the battles they'd fought, and the times he'd led his teammates through hardship flashed through his mind. I've done everything expected of me as the student squad leader. Now it's time to make those old trainers carve this name into their memories. Thinking that, a small, eager smile crept across his lips. The name Demian. He kept looking ahead. The fighting fire inside him burned hotter. especially knowing that if he beat Squad 3 and that Appel fellow, Rookie of the Year would be practically guaranteed. Through the enemy ranks, Appel's figure quickly fell into his view. Looks like he's planning to guard the flag himself. With the energy he burned earlier, putting him on the front line to command would be a bit cruel. Though it tugged at him, this had been decided from the start of the match, so a direct clash was inevitable. The atmosphere on the field tightened like a drawn bow as the announcement echoed across the area. Squad 1 attacks, Squad 3 defends. The inter-squad final begins. The order barely finished and Demian immediately spun to look at his squad, shouting, "Floor it from the start. Come on, focus up and charge after me." A chorus of spirited replies rang out, "Roger." Right after that, the entire first platoon moved quickly into their prearranged formation and surged toward the enemy trenches, leaving onlookers stunned. What the heck? How are they so fast? They're running like mad and the formation hasn't shifted a bit. The more Gerard watched, the more he felt the pressure the enemy imposed. The first platoon with Demian leading is no joke. That thought barely formed before he ordered, "Raise the shields, watch that platoon leader of theirs." But as the command went down, Demian stepped out of formation at lightning speed. It was useless. Mana surged into the arm, gripping the spear. As the distance snapped to its minimum in an instant, he struck decisively. One thrust and I'll pierce right through. The defensive line meant to stop the initial assault shook violently. The front line shouted, "Our shield's been pierced." Under Demian's overwhelming force, the key defensive point of the third platoon nearly collapsed in the blink of an eye. Having achieved his goal, he yelled to alert the teammates behind him, "Breach." Seeing the terrifying scene unfold, Gerard barked commands. "No, stop them now." Orders flew non-stop with desperate intent to halt the goal. "Take them down, right now." Just as the encirclement was about to close, Demian's pupils suddenly flared with determination. The moment the simultaneous strikes came in, his body had already lunged out of its original spot, by using his body with agile movement. So when the enemy's clubs all hit the ground together, the target was no longer there. His figure slipped through gaps in the enemy ranks, sending many third platoon members sprawling. "My ankle." While still on the move, Demian didn't forget to shout back. First platoon regroup. Kyle and the others immediately sped up to mop up the panicked rookies. "You've come all the way here, have you?" Seeing this, Gerard's face tightened stage by stage. Impossible. How could they get through this fast? Appel nearby quickly concluded that the kid was the biggest threat anyway. His brow furrowed as he assessed the situation. "If we lock Demian down, they won't touch the flag." Saying that, he handed the flag to his captain and instructed, "Let me deal with him. You keep that flag safe, okay?" An involuntary call slipped from Gerard's mouth. "Appel!" Watching the back preparing to step into the fray, complicated feelings stirred in him. Never thought I'd have to rely on this kid in a situation like this. Seeing Appel slowly step into the dust, Demian judged that the final showdown had arrived. The image triggered memories from a past life. Future General Appel. While Demian was still reminiscing, Appel suddenly leapt into the air and appeared right above him. Faced with the surprise attack, he remained calm. If he wanted to test how skilled he was against a guy like that, this was the chance. As he twisted to dodge the descending strike, his mind kept racing non-stop. The first move was just a feint. Realizing the opponent's intent, a thrilled smile slowly curved Demian's lips. If that's the case, his gaze stayed glued to every twist in Appel's offense as the next assault was quickly launched. This one was the real deal. The weapon in his hand shot up to meet the descending strike head-on, producing a violent shockwave where two differing manas collided. An attack he'd calculated to the letter was parried with pinpoint precision, which took Appel by surprise. Still, he quickly adjusted his rhythm and stepped back. Meanwhile, Demian's hand tightened on the shaft as mana continued to pool inward. "Give it your all, Appel." His fighting spirit surged. "The gap between them blurred in an instant because I'm pouring everything into taking you down." When the powerful blow fell, Appel managed to raise his weapon in time to block. Of course, Demian wouldn't give up there. He decisively lifted the staff again. Another brutal strike came down. The force transmitted through the weapon made Appel pale. The mana was strong enough to nearly snap the spear. Taking non-stop barrages from the front, Appel grew increasingly baffled. Is this guy really just a civilian? Don't tell me he's like me too. His doubts swelled at the wildcard that was Demian. How could someone manipulate mana so skillfully? Facing that roaring energy, Appel couldn't help but force a wry smile. Who knew in this little training camp we'd hit such an impenetrable wall? After trading blows for a while, Demian suddenly retracted and said calmly, "Let's end this match, shall we, Appel?" He immediately released all the force he'd been building, forming a shockwave that lunged straight forward. Appel definitely couldn't block this one. The spear tore through the air. in a flash shattering the weapon held before Appel's chest and smashing into him without mercy. The severe impact hurled him away, and he tumbled across the ground in multiple rolls. Pushing himself up, Appel winced as pain radiated through his body. Seizing the moment while his opponent couldn't respond, Demian brushed past him and accelerated toward the objective. Those behind could only watch helplessly, useless. Damn it, the flag. Vision blurring, he still strained toward his team's emblem. In a heartbeat, Demian seized the flag and hoisted it overhead as the coach's shout rang out. First platoon wins. Seeing that, Appel could only grit his teeth and accept the outcome. With the flag in hand, Demian quickly went up to the guy who'd given him a proper fight. He then reached down, helped his opponent to his feet, and praised him. "Good match, Appel," the other nodded. "Congrats, but next time I won't lose." At that determined declaration, Demian flashed a bright smile and suggested, "Then next time join my team so I don't have to beat you twice. I don't think I could handle it." Faced with his sunbeam of a smile, Appel felt no annoyance at all. Once steady, he lightly punched Demian's chest and replied, "Cut the modesty." Demian thrilled at the thought of the future. "I actually beat Appel Vanstril. Maybe this experience will accidentally turn him into an even scarier monster." Brushing that aside, Demian turned to his teammates who were cheering non-stop. "That can wait. Right now it's time to enjoy the victory with the crew." Meanwhile, not far from the field, the coach watched everything and calmly concluded that it was over with the first platoon's victory, and they must ensure the remaining 2 weeks of training go just as smoothly. Hearing that, Leonhardt behind him just smiled in agreement. Indeed. For now, his attention belonged to the moment, savoring the cheers from Demian's squad. Let the kids taste the sweet flavor of victory first. Kyle planted himself in front of the spread of food. "What is this? Is this for real?" He couldn't hide his excited, hungry shout. Stake at the training camp itself. Winning the platoon tournament really pays off. Watching his teammates devour the meat, Demian whispered in admiration. "They're wiped out but look so energized. Then again, you don't get to gorge on meat like this every day." He glanced around for someone. "Master looks like he's gone. Pity, I wanted to talk to him a bit more." Suddenly, Rabin appeared wanting to join. "Mind if I sit here?" A trainee jumped up, flustered, to offer the seat. "Coach, of course, please sit." He sat down beside him, curiosity clear. "Demian, are you still set on yesterday's decision? I mean Leonhardt's offer." Demian, not overly animated, replied, "Yes, sir, I am." Rabin could only chuckle helplessly. What a shame, such a rare opportunity. He then glanced, probing. "But did you hear about this?" Demian asked curiously. "About what, sir?" Rabin recounted a recent event. Leonhardt also extended an invitation to Appel to join the Knights. Guess what Appel answered? Calmly, Demian said, "Whichever he chooses, I'll respect it. Appel's life is his to decide." Rabin couldn't help but laugh at that. "You're a boring kid, you know that." Rabin watched him for a few seconds and thought, "I came here to persuade you not to join the Knights, but it seems nothing will change your mind." If that's the case. He stood up, raised his cup, and said warmly, "Listen up, everyone. You've all worked hard these past 2 weeks. I wish you all the best. Tomorrow we dive back into training. Prepare yourselves. I hope you'll train your hardest to reach your personal goals." Everyone cheerfully responded, lifting their cups in unison. Glory to the kingdom. Time flew, and before long they entered the 3rd week of training, the final week. The coach folded his arms and roared encouragement. "Thrust harder, come on faster." Demian scanned around, a satisfied curl on his lips as he noticed the rookie's attitudes had clearly changed. And not just his platoon, the entire 3rd training camp was shifting in a positive direction. Seems that platoon tournament was a huge lever. The coach's voice rang out. "All right, 5-minute break." Kyle, panting, rushed over to ask, "Demian, have you heard the news?" Demian looked at him. "What news?" He relayed what he'd heard. "I heard the morale of the 4th platoon has been miserable since the tournament, their dropout rates skyrocketing." Kyle burst into gleeful laughter, "Especially their platoon leader after that flop he ran off." Demian smirked mockingly. "Pathetic." Suddenly he turned and dropped a question. "But Kyle, you know what's most important right now, right?" Demian faced everyone seriously and reminded them. "Sure, we got a pile of team points from winning the platoon match. But if you want a sweet spot later, you need to take care of your personal score. Who here doesn't dream of setting foot in the royal palace? The juiciest job any rookie civilian drools over, royal administrative soldier. But out of the 160 people here, only 30 can even apply to the palace. And even then, the internal competition is brutal. Only about 1/3 of applicants actually get in." Kyle at first laughed it off, sounding surprisingly tense. Demian glanced back and stated a fact. "Anyway, anyone who enlists here is aiming for that goal." Sensing something off, he shook Kyle's shoulder hard and demanded, "Wait, Don't tell me you're aiming for that royal admin seat too. He sighed and explained wearily, I have no intention of going to the palace. But Kyle didn't let it go. Why not? You that keen to be a royal administrative soldier? Demian calmed himself to point out the harsh truth of glory and titles. Do you know that if you get accepted, you'll be stuck in that palace all day? Making Kyle pause for a few seconds. I know. It does sound a bit stifling, but still, that's the best position. Not taking it would be a waste. He brushed off his tunic and bluntly exposed. Stop. A guy like you would be bolting out of there in less than a month. You're the active, show-off type. Sitting still in there, you'd be bored to death. Kyle couldn't argue but remained curious. So where exactly are you planning to go then? Demian looked up with resolute eyes and declared, I'm joining Neocallis. Just that name made everyone's faces go pale. He was so shocked his face contorted as he shouted, Neocallis. Is that the place I'm thinking of, folks? Demian's officially gone mad. He immediately got a boot to the shin from Demian. Shut your mouth, the old soldier. Kyle bent over holding his leg in pain, but then laughed. Demian, just as I thought. Demian was a bit surprised by that reaction. What do you mean? He raised his head triumphantly and cheered. You're a certified madman, organized mad, reckless mad even. But that's exactly why I love hanging out with you. Just then the coach bellowed a reminder. Break's over, everyone back to training. Kyle jumped up and urged as he walked off. Back to training, one less tough competitor for that admin slot now. After practice, Myra stepped onto the podium to speak. Over the past month, you've all worked hard. Demian listened silently, but his heart was full. I can't believe it's already the day we complete training. It feels like we just enlisted yesterday. He looked down at the trainees and smiled encouragingly. I will cheer on your future efforts. After you leave this camp, keep fighting and moving forward so you can contribute to the kingdom. Suddenly, Raven looked at him and whispered a prompt. Demian. He understood, snapped to attention, and shouted to address the company. Attention, company. Salute the captain. Glory to the kingdom. Then it was his turn to announce. That concludes the closing ceremony. I will now read the list of the 5 outstanding recruits of the course. Raiden began revealing the first name. Platoon leader of Platoon 1, Demian. He warmly offered his congratulations. Congratulations! Demian's eyes lit up as he hurriedly replied, Yes. His mind rejoiced as if he'd climbed 9 stories of clouds. Nice, I did it. Raven continued with the second. Next is Appel of Platoon 3. He stepped up and responded cheerfully, Here. Then familiar names were called. Kyle of Platoon 1, Platoon 3's leader Gerard, and Platoon 2's leader Alex. After finishing the announcements, he proposed, The 5 of you follow me. As a reward, each of you may claim 1 piece of gear of your choice from the armory. They all filed up to a large door. Raven explained how to claim the prize. You can take anything inside. We'll start with the highest scorers. Demian, you go in first. He plunged in eagerly. Yes, sir. Inside, he was practically celebrating. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Demian scanned the room and observed. This place is pretty neatly organized, huh? He casually picked up a few items to examine. Is this a mana potion? I wonder if this vault hides any legendary treasure I don't know about. He quickly set them down and reminded himself to focus. Doesn't look like it. I'll just take what I need and get out of here fast. Exactly as he'd been told. Ever since stepping in, I haven't been able to take my eyes off it. Demian reached up and grabbed something. Found you. It turned out to be a ring. The very item a lower-ranking trainee at Training Camp 3 had whispered about. A ring that can activate a brief invisibility enchantment when mana is channeled into it. Having gotten what he wanted, Demian hurried out. The other rookies won't pay this ring any mind. Who here even knows how to use mana? That thought changed as he passed Appel. Oh, except for one guy, and that's him. Raven announced outside. Next is Appel, you may enter. He strode in. Yes, sir. He stood outside in silence waiting. But in my past life, wasn't it Appel who grabbed that ring? He must have used mana to sense its uniqueness already. Demian's gaze grew serious. Now I'm curious what he'll bring out instead. When the other came back out, he was surprised. He came out much faster than I expected. Had he already decided ahead of time what to pick? Kyle beside him noticed he was dazed and asked, Hey Demian, what's up? Demian quickly shook his head to deny it. No, nothing at all. But he had mentally noted everything. There's no mistake, the seal Appel brought out. It bears the crest of a kingdom long fallen. I've always wondered how he knew how to use mana at such a young age. A thought flashed. Don't tell me Appel has close ties to that ancient kingdom. Raven shut the big door and asked, All right, does everyone have an item? He rubbed his chin, pondering Appel's choice. Appel, do you know what that is? Appel calmly explained. I just felt power from it, so I brought it along. Raven smiled in approval and added info. Power, huh, makes sense. That's a seal imbued to ward off evil and avert disaster. He looked at the two others in admiration. You brought a spear, nice. And that's a shield crafted by artisan Walter. Finally, his gaze landed on Demian, and Raben hesitated a little. And Demian, are you sure that's your choice? That ring only helps reduce your body weight a bit. He sounded surprised and asked, reduce body weight. He blinked in mild surprise and offered, you picked at random without knowing? Let me try it on. But Demian had already slipped it onto his own finger. Then he moved around in place, eyebrows raised in surprise. Seems it makes me much lighter than I thought. This will let me move a lot faster on the battlefield. Raben stepped forward seriously and asked, are you satisfied? Demian nodded firmly and explained, yes, it's actually much better than I expected. Yet inside he was wildly excited. Both invisibility and weight reduction, this ring is truly an A-grade relic. Seeing everyone pleased, Raben announced the next step. Now everyone return. You also need to submit your unit preference forms. Back in the room, Raben handed out forms and said, fill yours out too, Demian. He remained steadfast in choosing Neocallis as his unit. Raben looked around, sighed inwardly, and grew increasingly regretful. If Demian had joined the Knights, he'd surely go far. Demian set down his pen and handed the preference form back. I'm done. Raben reached out to take it. All right. Still worried, he warned carefully. Of course I know you can handle yourself, but that place is extremely dangerous, so be careful. Demian nodded in response. Yes, sir, thank you for your concern. Raben finally exhaled and announced, you've worked hard this month, you'll receive notice in a few days and can depart. Demian bowed once more. Thank you for everything, coach. He pushed the door open and left the room after finishing everything. Demian glanced back at the familiar space that had clung to him. Finally, I'm almost there. Somehow it feels bittersweet. Suddenly a voice echoed down the hall. Demian. He was slightly surprised someone was calling him. Appel. Appel strode up, burning with anger. I heard from the coach. Appel snapped angrily. Why didn't you join the Knights? With your skills you more than qualify. Demian shook his head to state his view. That place isn't for me. He bit his lower lip to hold back emotion and lowered his voice to say, I'm joining the Knights. I received a letter of recommendation from trainer Leonhardt. He already knew and only smiled encouragingly. A wise choice, you'll do great. That only made Appel angrier and helpless. You call that wise when you yourself turned it down? You really have no clue, Demian. He looked up seriously and warned. That Neocallis unit you registered for, I've heard it's terrifyingly dangerous. Take care of yourself. They gripped each other's hands with resolve. Appel smiled and promised, we'll definitely meet again, Demian. Demian curved the corner of his mouth and replied, thank you. Watching Appel walk away, he wondered silently whether Appel knew that in the distant future he'd become a general of the kingdom of Baroque. Maybe he'll even become stronger than monsters. Whatever happens, I'm really looking forward to Appel's future. Demian spun around with rare excitement. Well then, I'll go say goodbye to the others. When he returned to the room, everyone had already packed up their clothes and gear. Kyle saw him and ran over, calling out Demian. He laughed and teased. We thought you'd just leave without saying goodbye. Demian sighed and replied sincerely. You have to say goodbye, who knows when we'll meet again. Suddenly Kyle grinned and dropped a cryptic line. You'll see me again sooner than you think. Then he turned to everyone and announced loudly. All right, our captain wants to give a final farewell, so attention, gather round and watch. Demian raised his head with joyful eyes and said sincerely, You've worked hard, thank you for following me. Do your best in your new units. Everyone chimed in together. Thanks for everything, Demian, see you soon. He nodded with satisfaction and replied, wishing you all the best. A little while later, Demian took off his uniform and changed into regular clothes. Just then, a soft voice nearby called, Demian. He paused for a beat before turning to look. She smiled brightly and greeted him. Long time no see, Demian. I'm Dial from the Hamel Trading Guild, pleased to meet you. Cut to an office in town. Dial had prepared what he needed. First, here's a detailed document on how we'll use your investment. She laid everything out seriously. Based on your conditions, we expect a return of 3% of net revenue. Demian flipped through the pages with surprise and satisfaction. Not bad. Didn't expect her to plan my investment so neatly. Dial offered a professional smile. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. He set the papers down and decided. After reading this, I have no more questions. Proceed as planned. Someone will bring over the insured funds under my name shortly. She gathered the documents to move on to the next procedure. Understood. And about the detailed contract. Suddenly, Demian waved his hand to refuse. That won't be necessary. Contracts are only needed when there's a dispute between parties. I trust you'll handle things well. That sudden vote of confidence surprised Dial. You really are a remarkable person. He placed a small chest on the table and said, "Please inspect it. This is the investment I promised." When she opened it, she couldn't hide her astonishment. Demian. When she opened it, she couldn't hide her astonishment. Demian? Dial had expected the promised investment to be 300 gold coins, but this looked like over 500. Demian snapped his fingers and explained, "Just a little extra to reward your diligence." She was still reeling and started to adjust the figures. "Then I must revise the investment amount in the contract." But he stopped her. No need. Though she had initially underestimated him due to his youth and appearance, the materials she prepared for him as a real investor were quite impressive. Dial grew curious about his plans. "You just finished training, right? So you'll be heading to your assigned unit soon. Where are you going?" He answered calmly and honestly. "I'm heading west. I registered with the Neo-Kali's unit near the Bronzerian forest." She went from one shock to another. "What? Neo-Kali's? You volunteered for that place?" Demian shrugged with a hint of pride. "Do you think the top trainee in the class was forced to go there?" Demian's mouth curved in a teasing smirk. "What's the matter? If I croak, the investment still goes to the Hamel Guild anyway." Unexpectedly, Dial replied sternly, "Please don't say things like that. I don't find that sort of joke amusing." He raised an eyebrow, inwardly impressed. "I thought she was a gentle woman, but at times like this she's razor-sharp." She returned to a pleasant tone and asked, "When will you depart?" Demian answered truthfully, "In 3 days." Dial stood and gave a solemn promise. "Understood. I will use the investment you've entrusted to me as effectively as possible." When he watched her leave, he let out a relieved breath. Investment matters settled. Demian, full of excitement, vowed to enjoy himself. "All right, 3 days until I'm stuck in that terrifying forest. From now until then, I must gorge on all the good food I can." So he charged into a tavern and knocked back several beers with pure glee. Then Demian swung by the grill stand and bought skewer after skewer, devouring them. When he grew sleepy, he just sprawled out on the street and slept off the drunk. On departure day, Demian held the map and muttered to himself, "I guess it's about time to set off." He glanced back to check his supplies. "I've nearly packed everything I need, now it's just go time." But suddenly a strange sensation pressed against his back and made Demian shiver. Why all of a sudden? When he turned, he was stunned to see Kyle. "What are you doing here?" Kyle laughed heartily. "Didn't I say we'd see each other again soon?" Demian squinted, probing. "Kyle, don't tell me you." Suddenly Kyle called out straight. "Demian," he declared with vigor and certainty. "Do you really think our relationship stops at being classmates from training camp? I've signed up for the Neo-Kali's unit too. Demian, let's do our best there together, okay?" Kyle slung an arm around Demian's shoulders and urged, "Come on, let's go." As the two of them were slowly heading off, a voice called out to stop them. "Wait a moment." That made Kyle start and look up. "What is it?" Dial stepped forward with an embarrassed smile and said, "Great, it's not too late." Kyle gaped at the girl and asked, "What breeze blew you here?" Demian, curious, added, "What's with all this stuff?" She explained, "I heard the Neo-Kali's unit is stationed very far away, so I prepared this wagon for your trip. Inside are long-lasting snacks and a few necessities you might need." Demian grew more puzzled. "But why would you do that?" Recalling his earlier face and words, she affirmed, "It's to repay the favor you did for me, like how you repaid my sincerity. Demian, our trading guild always believes in mutual give and take, so I spent the last 2 days gathering this pile for you." She advised safe travels to you both. The gifted supplies made Kyle delighted and he praised, "She's generous, all right." Dial scratched her head at the compliment. Demian smiled. "Consider this an investment since you told me to invest more later." Dial startled and asked, "What did you say?" He laughed until his sides hurt, thinking to himself, "She lies terribly, but she's more interesting than I thought." He then turned away but left a farewell. "All right, see you later." Dial bowed and replied, "Yes, goodbye, Demian." The two men climbed into the wagon and set off together. Dial stood behind and watched the wagon recede until it vanished from sight. Kyle and Demian's journey lasted several days, and at last they could spot a town in the distance. Kyle, tossed about in the wagon, groaned. "Damn it, why is this road so gut-shaking?" Demian remarked. "Walking would have left us all limbs and joints aching." He pointed outside and announced, "Anyway, I can see the Urkel Defense Forces, means we've reached Urkel." Kyle wondered aloud that he couldn't see any townsfolk around. Demian leaned back against the wall and explained, "Probably because of the monsters, or maybe they're all in the Bronzerian forest. Most residents of Urkel make a living by entering Bronzerian forest to gather an herb called amancho. Amancho is a poisonous plant that causes high fever and diarrhea, but if processed correctly, it becomes the main ingredient in a very potent painkiller. Since 60% of the kingdom's amancho comes from the Bronzerian forest, no matter how dangerous it is, The villagers can't give up the trade. After climbing down from the wagon, Demian urged excitedly, "Let's get to the base, come on." The two stepped into Urkel, where the streets were eerily empty. Kyle frowned and spoke up. "Hey, Demian, don't tell me." He pointed ahead and asked, "That building, are you sure anyone can live in there? It looks like a light touch would bring it down." Meanwhile, Demian caught the scent of blood on the air. When nobody answered, Kyle called, puzzled, "Demian," he warned, "someone's coming." From a distance, a fairly large group was approaching them. They didn't look very strong. Some were wounded and had to be supported by others to walk. And on each of their pauldrons was engraved the symbol and the word Neo. As the group passed Demian, one young man shot them an unfriendly glance. Then the group disappeared behind a dark doorway. Kyle looked at them and blurted, "Good grief, look at their faces like walking ghosts." Demian could only sigh and remind him, "You'll have to get used to that, Kyle. This is a place where people go to risk their lives every day." He quietly wondered why that memory had come back to him just now. Recalling the past, Demian once stood before a troop and asked, "In your opinion, what's the most important duty of a soldier?" They eagerly answered from their own views. "Absolutely obey orders, right? Isn't it to eliminate the enemy as effectively as possible, sir? Even if I die, I'll drag 20 of them with me." Demian frowned slightly, showing his disagreement with those views. Then he rapped a soldier on the head hard enough to leave him dazed, who complained, "Why are you bonking only me?" Demian replied, "Because your answer was the worst. Listen carefully, the correct answer is don't die." He asserted, "Do not die, never take your life lightly. At all costs, return alive. We must become stronger so we don't get killed. Clear." Back in the present, Demian sighed, thinking to himself that he still remembered the faces of those who heard him then, even though in the end they all died. Then he told his companion, "Let's go inside, Kyle." He asked, bewildered, "Right now?" Demian turned and asked, "Have you forgotten why we're here? To become stronger, standing around is a waste of time." Kyle replied anxiously, "Hey, Demian, you saw their faces earlier. The atmosphere inside is probably awful, maybe we should wait a bit." But no matter what was said, Demian kept walking toward the dark doorway, leaving Kyle helpless. He ran after him in fear, shouting, "Demian, wait." At the Neo-Kali's unit, Victor angrily hurled his sword into a crate and cursed, "Damn it, those bastards from the defense force. They said there were only a few orcs, but there were over 30, and they even brought along an old orc mage." Russell reported with concern, "Sergeant Carissa's arm is dangling and about to be torn off. If not treated immediately, he'll be forced to be discharged." For Neo-Kali's members sent here as punishment instead of harsher discipline, the option of discharge doesn't exist. It's either rotting to bones in prison for the rest of your life, either rot and struggle in this living hell, or be worked to death by Neo-Kalis and tossed aside like a rag. Victor, choking on his anger, shouted, "Damn it, discharge my arse. What we'd starve if they boot us out with those injuries." At the Neo-Kali's captain's side, Terran sounded calmer and offered a solution. "First call a medic, then see if we can summon a cleric from the temple." Fabian retorted, "Captain, do you know how much those fanatic clerics charge? Our pay wouldn't even cover it." Terran bluntly produced his coin pouch and replied, "It's 20 gold coins. Pool the money together." Victor, seeing that, yelled in fury, "Captain, isn't that the surgery fund for your mother?" He forced a smile and answered, "Her condition's better now. The surgeon says no emergency operation is needed." The other soldiers exchanged looks. Each understood how much the captain had sacrificed for the unit. Everyone then chipped in together. "Damn it, count me in too." "Me too." Dianel stammered over and whispered, "I'd like to contribute as well." Victor angrily shouted, "Hey, since when did the newest recruit start acting all charitable? Take that money and buy yourself a new pair of boots instead of those tattered things, kid." The younger brother trembled, voice pleading, "Please let me contribute. Sergeant Cariss is badly hurt because he saved me." Victor moved, cursed through his throat. "Damn it, what a good kid." Terran then ordered a soldier, "This will take some time, so go fetch the cleric at the temple first." He quickly ran out to take the order. "Yes, sir." Terran turned to another and asked, "Dianel, how old are you this year?" He answered, "I'm 18, sir." Terran put a hand on his comrade's shoulder and praised, "Time flies. Our youngest has been enlisted a year already. Now we just need Cariss to hold on." Suddenly someone behind him called out, "Captain, I report. The new recruits we were notified about have arrived here." Hearing that, everyone cast suspicious looks over. Terran replied, "New recruits. The fighting was so intense I completely forgot." He called loudly, "Dianel." The youth answered, "Here, sir." Terran clapped the youngest on the shoulder and announced, "Let's go. It's time to receive your juniors." In the office, Terran looked at the two newcomers and asked, "You lads the new recruits this batch?" The two answered in unison, "Yes." He mentally sized them up. That kid there's useful, muscular, and seems strong. When he looked at Demian, Taran hesitated a little. He asked aloud, "You're really only 13? The boy nodded. "Yes, sir." Taran thought to himself, even younger than Dianel, who was the youngest at 5 years old when he joined. Why would a kid like this volunteer to enlist here? He helplessly set the paper down and murmured, "I give up. I don't understand what kids these days are thinking." Kyle pointed at Demian and affirmed, but he was the top of his training class. Taran, surprised, asked, "Top of the class?" He cautioned gently, "So what? The training camp and this place are two completely different worlds." Demian replied, "I know." His nonchalant expression startled the captain into asking again, "You know, and you still dragged yourself here." He then loudly called, "Dianel." The youth answered, "Here, sir." Taran pointed at the two new soldiers and ordered, "You two, take them to claim their bunks and tell them to clean up." Dianel replied, "Understood, sir." He glanced at the pair and announced, "Follow me." Demian and Kyle walked behind Dianel down the unit corridor. He began to explain everything slowly. Here in Neo-Collies, there are no ranks. Forget titles like platoon leader or company commander. The man before was the unit commander, and the one beside him is the deputy. Under them, whoever arrived first is senior. Order is extremely strict. Entering the sleeping quarters, Dianel announced, "Pick any bed you like, though you won't be sleeping there long anyway." Kyle asked in confusion, "What do you mean?" Dianel answered, "I've been here a year and I'm still the newest. You get what that means, right?" Kyle replied, "How should I know?" No sooner had he finished than Dianel kicked Kyle hard in the shin. He howled in pain, doubled over and clutched his leg, growling. Dianel looked at the two new soldiers with a gaze full of hatred mixed with pain and said, "It means," he ground out, "those who come after me all end up grassed over." That sentence made Demian and Kyle freeze momentarily, saying nothing. Dianel then turned and left the room, reminding them, "Unload your gear and sweep the barracks first. When you're done, I'll explain the rest." Kyle sat down on a bed, while Demian turned to carefully inspect the room. Kyle swore in anger. What kind of idiot talks like that, who knows? Seeing Demian wasn't angry, he asked, "Why are you laughing again?" The boy replied casually, "Just felt like it." Demian thought to himself, "Looks like he really hasn't changed." Then he called out loudly, "Get cleaning." Kyle asked, "Are you serious?" Demian grabbed a rag and replied, "If we're doing it anyway, do it properly." "This is our first task, right?" Demian teased, "Clean until it's lickable." That made Kyle snap angrily. "Do I look like a janitor to you?" A little while later in the Neo-Collies mess hall, Dianel sat quietly in a corner thinking to himself, "I'm scared. Every time a new comrade joins, and I grow fond of them and grow close to them. I remember back then I was friendly and chatted with the new recruits. Today's your first mission, right? Watch carefully. Today's tasks are easy, so stay in the back. A single moment of distraction is enough to cost you your life." Neo-Collies is exactly that kind of place, because at some point I stopped keeping an eye on new recruits, since sooner or later they'll die as time passes. But these new ones for some reason bother me, especially that kid. His gaze looked as if he already knew me from before. While lost in thought, Kadif announced, "Dianel, I've finished repairing your soles." He accepted the shoes and replied, "Thanks." The man took the money and chatted. "Hey, I saw those dazed kids standing at the unit gate earlier. Are they the new recruits?" Dianel answered, "You saw them." Kadif asked again. "They looked so bewildered I thought they were from the defense force, but turns out they're your juniors." He didn't dare answer, just bowed his head softly. "Drop by next time, please." Dianel walked on thinking, juniors? What a joke. Back in the room, I'll have to stomp that arrogance out of them. Seeing the unit gate appear, Dianel muttered, "Enthusiasm, confidence, pride. Those things will just get you killed here. They wouldn't be sloppy about cleaning, would they?" As he stepped through the door, what he saw made him gasp in alarm. Demian, his face streaked with mud, turned and greeted, "You're back." The room was dazzlingly clean, and he called out, "Private Dianel." Two others came over and patted Dianel's shoulder, saying, "We were shocked too. Dianel, how hard did you beat those new recruits?" He stammered in fright, "No, sir, I didn't do anything." Demian then carried over a basin of water and reported, "We've finished cleaning as ordered. Please check if anything's left undone." Dianel looked at the spotless room and felt uneasy. Usually when told to clean, they just go through the motions. How is it this gleaming? Or is this? He wondered, is this some deep intimidation tactic? Taran stood behind them, laughing heartily. He praised, "These new recruits are top-notch. The place looks like a newly built barracks." The others were baffled by Taran's expression. Commander smiling, the stoic one himself. Taran then called seriously, "New recruits, come here." He asked, "Did you two clean all this yourselves?" Both answered in unison, "Yes, sir." He curiously asked, "Why clean so thoroughly? A token effort would have done." Demian replied solemnly, "That was Senior Dianel's order. We followed it strictly because it's an order from our superior. Taran heard this and looked deep into the young soldier's eyes, thinking, after years of hard fighting at the edge of life and death, I can gauge someone's capability at a glance. That big guy there, a bit more training and you can toss him into battle immediately. But I just can't read this kid. How did the top cadet of the training camp end up throwing himself into this misery? There must be something mysterious that made him volunteer here. But before he could investigate, Taran ordered, "Attention everyone, listen up." Everyone looked over curiously, wondering what the order would be. But contrary to the serious tone, Taran smiled and announced, "From today, these two are the youngest members of our unit. Welcome them." Demian and Kyle smiled happily at each other. It was a deserved reward for their seriousness and effort. Diana lay on the wooden plank beside Demian and asked, "Demian, when do you think this war will end? Will it ever end?" Hearing that, the boy fell silent, his gaze darkening as he replied casually, "Well, surrender and the war's over." Suddenly, Diana closed his eyes, voice resolute. "Demian, you absolutely must not die before me." Demian looked at him with a probing look. "Did you eat something bad today? Why the sudden sappiness?" Diana shrugged and replied, "Just felt like saying it. Promise me, okay." End of the memory. Demian sighed with longing and thought, I didn't bother answering him back then, but I did keep my promise. He remembered the memory of standing over Diana's corpse. Demian's eyes were full of blood-red veins from rage. He charged onto the battlefield alone and cut down dozens of enemy soldiers. Because in the end, I outlived that bastard. Sadness washed over Demian as he recalled the scene. Damn it. He sat up, shielded his brow with his hand, and thought, might as well not sleep now. I'll use the time to practice mana accumulation. Then Demian quickly changed into his training clothes and stepped outside. After venturing deeper into the forest, he saw someone training in hiding. Demian wondered suspiciously, who's still training at this hour? The silhouette practicing swordplay under the soft moonlight. It's Diana. He stood to the side, watching closely, silent. He marveled inwardly. Even in his past life, he was a training fanatic. Seeing him bracing the blade and panting like an ox, Demian wondered, why is he using that sword style? That fighting method completely contradicts his greatest strength, speed. Demian sighed in helplessness, thinking, right, in the past it took me ages to persuade him to change weapons. If I jump in now, he'll probably punch me, though he couldn't land a hit on me anyway. He turned and left quietly, not disturbing Diana's diligent practice. No point ruining the little goodwill I've built. There'll be a better chance to talk later. Cut to the next morning, everyone gathered beneath the towering mountains, looking around and exclaiming, good grief, this training ground is terrifying every time. Looks like today's endurance training will be brutal. Varen turned to the soldiers beside him and started a wager. Waiting for the captain is boring. Wanna make a bet, brothers? Bet on whether the two new recruits will last until the end of today's session. The crowd chimed in, betting loudly. I'll put 10 silver they can't even crawl through the morning. I'll bet 20 silver they'll keel over right after the morning shift. I'm in. Kyle and Demian took it all in. He grumbled angrily. What are those guys doing? Turning us into a betting game? Enough with the disrespect. He watched them happily placing bets and thought they must be used to this. Nobody stepped in to stop it. The atmosphere in this unit really is. Demian suddenly turned and strode forward. Kyle followed and asked suspiciously, Demian, where are you going? He unexpectedly approached those divvying up the bets and asked, startling the crowd, can I join in? Looks like fun. They were taken aback. Varen sneered loudly. Jesus, you nearly gave me a heart attack. Others mocked in chorus. The main character dragged himself here. New recruit, you got any coin? Demian's face remained remarkably calm as he replied matter-of-factly. Yes, I do, but I'd like to change the bet terms a bit. He revealed a shiny gold coin with a confident look. I bet that during today's training I'll surpass everyone here, even my teammate's squad, to claim first place. I'm putting down one goal. Their faces darkened as they stared at Demian. He confidently put a hand on his hip and asked, any more conditions you want to add? The corners of their mouths curled into crafty smiles. They broke into mocking laughter. This new kid's got a mean competitive streak, huh? One of them pointed at the coin and said, fine, if you win, take all this money. Varen, thrilled, clenched his fist and set the condition. If you lose, you wash all our clothes for a month. Someone jeered. If you're not sure, quit now, kid. Demian's face remained utterly calm as he continued. Since we're staking a whole gold and laundry duty, allow me to add one more condition of my own. Varen perked up, curious. Another condition? What's that? Spill it. Demian's expression grew serious, his voice light. If I win, grant me full exemption from scheduled training sessions for a month. The others fell silent, stunned. What? Skip training? That sounds wildly unreasonable. Suddenly, Taryn appeared out of nowhere and agreed. Fine, let's do it. The others spun around in shock. Captain. He called over to Dianel standing across the way. Dianel? Dianel answered, puzzled. Yes, sir. Taryn smiled and pointed at the group of jokers. You join this wager too. Dianel stepped forward, puzzled. Me. Taryn cut him off teasingly. What, scared you'll lose to your juniors? Dianel shook his head, face hardening. No way. I just won't waste money on a bet where the outcome's already obvious. Taryn, pleased, tossed over a silver coin with a show of generosity. Then I'll cover the bet for you. He stepped before Demian, his silhouette twice the newcomer's size, and said, New recruit, if you outperform the seniors in the drill, I'll approve the free time you requested. During training, Taryn turned to the instigators and warned, But any one of you who loses will be thrown into an enhanced hellish training course, so use everything you've got. They darkened with anger at that and spat. That arrogant brat, teach him some manners. Train like your lives depend on it, boys. Demian bowed slightly in a show of deference but felt elated inside. Everything's going according to plan. I can't pass up that bit of free time. He watched everyone stretching and silently calculated. Even if it takes this stunt, I must change this unit's lethargic mood. When people give up because they don't know when they'll die, living day to day with no hope will eat away not only you but those around you. Taryn folded his arms and looked down sternly. All right, let's begin the physical training. He pointed to a large pile of logs nearby and instructed. Today's drill is to run while carrying these logs straight up to the peak of that rocky mountain. Upon hearing this, everyone protested angrily. Captain, we don't normally do this hellish exercise. Let the new recruits try it. Why do we have to suffer too? Taryn's veins bulged and he barked in anger, silencing them. Form up and carry, less whining and move faster. They hurriedly hoisted the logs up the mountain, each of them utterly exhausted. Varen's crew also struggled, dripping with sweat. He glared up at Taryn, standing on the cliff watching them, and complained. Why did the captain suddenly pull this drill out of nowhere? As they twirled upward, they grumbled angrily. Clearly, it's the new recruits' fault. It's their first time doing this, of course they'll collapse in no time. Varen heard that and looked down, searching for Demian. What's that over there? Where's the new kid? His face twisted with fear and amazement as he snapped his head upward. Impossible. Demian had by then pulled far ahead of them. When did he crawl all the way up there? He was now panting hard, each breath ragged and heavy. He raised a hand to look at the ring and murmured with admiration. Didn't expect it could even reduce the weight of what I'm carrying. Demian smiled in satisfaction and exclaimed, Best decision ever choosing this ring. He looked back down the mountainside, searching for the others to see where the seniors had ended up. Demian saw the lead runner still some distance below and thought to himself, they're nowhere near catching up. The only one trying to keep pace was. Demian stared at the figure straining to chase him, and was sure it could only be Dianel. He heaved the log and let out long, exhausted breaths. Dianel's eyes were fixed upward, sweat pouring down. He's almost there. Seeing Demian's expectant, cheerful face, he thought, I figured he was only top of the training class, but this is. After a bit more, the first foot finally reached the mountain peak. Demian set the log down with supreme confidence. First place, an absolute dominance. Taryn, waiting above, was inwardly quite surprised. He actually finished first. He watched the second man arrive and mused. Didn't expect even Dianel to taste defeat. Looks like we've stumbled onto someone more capable than I thought. After a while, some others reached the summit. Taryn shouted down at those still climbing. Training's over. His face darkened. His voice made the group tremble. As agreed, the losers get the hellish drills. Everyone who arrives after the new recruits fall down now. Suddenly, Varen sprinted up in panic, calling out and startling him. Captain? With a frightened, urgent look, he blurted. Look toward the barracks. Taryn followed his point, and his eyes widened in horror. A red flag was fluttering over the distant camp, and the group panicked. Is that the one-star emergency red alert flag? The majestic, ancient gate of the city rose up under the pale golden sun. Taryn hurried inside to ask, Why's the red flag raised? A subordinate reported. Someone's been killed in the Bronzerian forest, sir. He gripped the armrest and sat down slowly. Victim info and exact location, the subordinate continued. They were some herb gatherers. The area is restricted. Taryn ground his teeth and swore. Damn it, it's a forbidden area. Why would they go in? He clenched his hands on the table and asked, Any word on the casualties or monster reports? The subordinate recounted tensely. Both are still unclear, but those herb gatherers went with 6 mercenaries. Before he finished, a voice cut in. Still no information about the monsters at this point. Taryn looked over. Aaron, how many can we mobilize right now? He did a quick calculation and replied. About 70, excluding the wounded. Without hesitation, he decided. Exclude the light injuries. Gather about 50 people. Move fast. Aaron bowed and answered, "Yes, sir." Taran's brow furrowed tightly. He thought anxiously. This is getting tense. Deployments are getting more frequent. Is that forest changing? Once the summoned were assembled, Taran stepped forward. "Everyone gathered," they answered in unison. "Yes, sir." He ordered immediately, "All arms up." No sooner had he spoken than Demian approached, panting, and proposed. "We want to come along too." Taran spun and refused outright. "No, you can train all you want, but the battlefield is different. You two stay at the barracks." His face serious and resolute, Demian stood firm. "We'll just come along as pack carriers in the rear. You saw our strength and endurance during the test earlier." Kyle beside him added, "We'll do it well." He didn't answer immediately, lowering his eyes to ponder. How embarrassing. Now we have to borrow the strength of these new recruits. After a moment, Taran turned and tossed out. "All right, as long as you don't join the fight, take the spare gear and wait in the rear. Diana'll hand over the spare packs to these two." He shouted the order and received. "Yes." Given permission, Demian glanced at Diana beside him. "Bronzerian forest, right? If I remember correctly, wasn't Diana the one who—" He showed no expression and blurted out, "There are demons in the Bronzerian forest." Demian planted his staff into the ground and wiped sweat from his face, sounding a bit incredulous. "Demons? That's ridiculous." Diana began to panic. "Those things aren't ordinary monsters. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, you would never believe it. An orc possessed by a demon smashed a steel wolf to pieces. Normally, it would take 5 orcs to barely handle one. Because of it, we had to abandon that land. If it weren't for that monstrosity, the Neokali's unit wouldn't have been disbanded." Demian frowned and rubbed his head. "Damn, the information is all scrambled, can't piece it together. All the same, even if it means doing chores, I have to go check it out myself." After preparations, Taran called from above. "Is everyone ready with their gear?" Everyone answered in unison, "Ready." He began to instruct. "I'll repeat. Once you enter combat, account for every possible situation. If something looks dangerous, best avoid it. The top priority is to return alive. Understood?" The group shouted back. "Understood, Captain." When preparations were finished, Taran decided, "Let's move out." Following behind the group, he thought to himself, "Finally, my first real battle." After moving for a while, they entered the forest. He issued assignments as they went. "We'll sweep the surrounding area first, teams of 3, and never leave each other's sight." Taran glanced at Demian and Kyle and warned, "You two follow me, don't fall behind." Demian replied, "Yes, sir." Kyle nodded, "Got it." Meanwhile, Demian scanned the surroundings, assessing. "We're entering the restricted area from here. The forest doesn't look special. What on earth is in this place?" His brows tightened as if he'd noticed something. "Yet it reeks of battlefield bloodlust, doesn't it?" With 5 years spent dancing on the edge of life and death, the moment he stepped in every sense screamed warnings. Demian tightened his grip on his weapon and told himself, "This place is extremely dangerous." No sooner had he pushed the thought away than a sound rang out, drawing everyone's attention. Taran's eyes darted toward the source. "Found something." Victor shouted the alert, "Captain, over here." When they ran up, the scene before them was drenched in a horrific red. Aaron stood aside and cautiously suggested, "The scout unit inspected this area, so why are the weapons still left like this?" Taran sat down and studied it. "That shows how terrified they must have been." Then he looked toward a corner. What kind of monster could cause such a dreadful scene? Aaron rested his blade on his shoulder and guessed. "Captain, could it be bear-type monsters?" Taran shot back. "There aren't any mutated bears in this forest that could do this." Aaron, tense, continued. "Then could it be orcs?" But before he finished, a voice cut in. "I don't think so." Aaron looked puzzled and turned toward where Demian stood. On closer inspection of what lay at his feet, he suddenly cried out, "Isn't that the corpse of a red bear?" Demian confirmed. "As the deputy captain said, the culprit isn't a bear-type creature." Then he pointed to a distant tree. "Judging by those claw marks, its front paws must be enormous. That's the only way to explain the wounds on that corpse." Taran put a hand to his chin and mused. "Right, solid reasoning." He asked with some curiosity, "Where did you pick up this knowledge?" He replied seriously, "My father used to be a hunter. I'm no woods expert, but I overheard a lot." Taran nodded. "I see, useful stuff to know." Kyle, standing behind and hearing the whole story, looked a bit bewildered. "Demian, didn't you say your dad was in the military?" Before he could finish questioning, Demian shot him an icy glare that shut him up. Time passed and Taran decided, "That's it for today. Withdraw, collect the bodies carefully, return them to their families." Watching the men work together to clean up, Demian agreed. "Honestly, if we pushed deeper now, it'd be suicidal. We only have hints. Whoever we're up against is still a mystery. He let out a small smile and a relieved breath. Though he seems cold, he's an excellent commander. No wonder Dianel respected someone like him. Terran stood to one side, urging the men seriously. Fall back, hurry up. At that moment, Demian suddenly noticed something amiss. He shouted to the group, "Everyone, get out of the way." No sooner had he spoken than a huge rock, from who knows where, fell straight down with a thunderous crash. Many men who couldn't dodge in time were crushed under it. Chaos erupted. "My leg!" Someone went pale. Where did this massive rock come from? Demian quickly spun and yelled back, "Kyle." He sprinted over, using his strength to lift the rock off their comrades. Demian also rushed in to help, clenching his teeth as he pushed the boulder aside. After a struggle, they finally managed to lift it free. Seeing this, Terran seized the chance. He pulled people out one by one. Quick, everyone lend a hand, rescue the trapped comrades. Those who'd been pinned trembled as others dragged them out. Terran squatted and surveyed the scene. "We're screwed, the situation's bad." Demian rummaged in his pack. "Chew on this, brother." He produced a herb and instructed seriously. "Chew it well to get the juice, it'll numb the pain a bit." Terran flinched and reached out to stop Demian. "Sleepgrass reduces pain, but it's poisonous. Swallowing it without detoxing is." Demian, expression unchanged, explained. "If you take it with the seeds of this thorn fruit, it neutralizes the toxin. While they're conscious, have them chew as much as they can." In the end, Terran didn't intervene. He fell into thought. This kid, how does he know so much? After giving the men pain relief, he proposed, "Captain, we must withdraw immediately. That rock didn't fall by accident. The culprit is clearly nearby." No sooner had he finished than the sight before them froze Demian and Terran in place. A monster. Seeing the giant bear before him, he couldn't help blurting, "That's insane. What the hell is that?" Someone couldn't help but exclaim, "Good heavens, I've never seen a monster this huge." Varen beside him trembled. How can a black bear turn into something like that? Wasting no time, Terran roared an order. "All units prepare to fight." At the command, everyone present quickly pointed their swords forward. The monstrous bear roared back and charged at them, launching its attack. Under the onslaught of razor claws, someone shouted a warning. "Get out of the way." Terran focused and urged, "Pull the wounded to the rear and surround it on all sides. Aim for its legs first." Over here, Helson raised his axe ready to strike at the beast's leg. A comrade yelled, "Helson!" He reassured them. "Leave it to me." He did just that. Helson took a running swing and brought the sharp blade down with full force. A powerful slash that landed straight on the bear's leg. However, on closer inspection, the blow didn't faze it at all. He thought to himself, "My strikes could split an orc's thigh in two, and yet." Seeing Helson stunned and unresponsive, Terran ran up from behind and warned, "Helson, focus." At that moment, the beast raised a massive paw. Then it slammed it forcefully into his body. With such force, both the axe and Helson's body were sent flying a distance. He crashed to the ground, gasping as he watched the enraged beast rampage. It stepped closer, and once more raised its razor-sharp claws. The beast struck down hard, shattering the ground into fragments. Watching it all, Terran couldn't help but grit his teeth and curse. "You damn monster." He glanced to a corner and thought grimly, 3 comrades are down. Today I'm going to take this beast's life." Calming himself, Terran stared the creature down and ordered, "Up, attack now." All the spear points aimed squarely at it. He roared again, "Damn it, stab until it falls apart." Seeing Demian and the others trying to step forward, someone blocked them. "New recruits, fall back to the rear now." Seizing the moment, Terran called back loudly, "Dianel!" He swung his sword to gain momentum from afar. "Captain!" A mighty stroke fell, severing the beast's legs in an instant. It howled in maddened pain, mouth wide with rage. After losing a leg, it couldn't stand, and collapsed right before Terran. He raised his sword to the brows knit, declaring, "It's over." The wild beast sensed the aura radiating, and Demian froze slightly. "Mana." Meanwhile, Terran leapt into the air with a raised blade. "Die." A finishing stroke sliced clean through the creature's body in an instant. When it was over, one man stamped on its body, smirking with excitement. "See, brute force always wins." Another added, "Serves you right, you filthy brute." Terran reached toward the carcass, giving it a careful once-over, wondering where the hell this damn thing came from. Also, he parted its thick fur and discovered something unusual. "These spots," Helson asked worriedly. "Could it be contagious? People with infectious diseases often get spots like these." Demian, standing to one side watching, widened his eyes. "Those spots are real." He stepped toward the carcass. "It just appearing here. There's only one way a monstrous creature like this can exist. We need to investigate immediately where this abomination came from." Terran wasted no time and quickly assigned tasks. "Aaron, take the men and keep watch around the area. Varen, skin this thing and bring the hide back for armor." Demian cut in. "It looks like the hide of this one won't be usable." Aaron, puzzled, blurted, What? Why's that? Taran flinched slightly and pressed his lips, staring at Demian. Taran studied his face and confirmed that the kid did indeed know something. He made another decision. Leave the hide here. All units withdraw. Also, you new recruit. Come with me immediately. Back at headquarters, Taran summoned Demian into a private room. Sit. Demian nodded slightly. Yes. Taran's face was serious as he looked at Demian and asked, do you know anything about the black-spotted monster we saw in the forest? He was silent for a moment, then decided to speak. From what I see, it's very likely been infected by Makai. Taran exclaimed in surprise. Makai, that evil energy that dark mages use, Demian confirmed. Yes, Taran tensed and guessed. So there's a dark mage hiding in the woods. You know dark magic is strictly forbidden, right? Demian lowered his eyes and shook his head. We can't be certain yet. It could be a dark mage, or it could be some cursed artifact accumulating Makai there. Makai, the power borrowed from worship and demonic rites. Whoever is gnawed by it long enough ends in a terrible death. Demian frowned slightly, thinking. The Bronzerian forest is known to have mana stones tainted with Makai, but didn't those only start acting up much later? The existence of that mana stone only became known after a catastrophe shook the Empire in later times. The Neokali's unit discovered possessed monsters in the Bronzerian forest. The Imperial Army formed a purge team and entered Bronzerian to eliminate the monsters. A thought popped into his head. What if? He suddenly widened his pupils. Everything is only just beginning at this point. The longer Makai is left, the more it assimilates and mutates monsters, making them stronger. So if we strike before Makai's power spreads, we can destroy it. Taran sighed heavily. How do you know so much about this? Demian answered honestly. My father told me he'd encountered something similar before. He seriously requested, I want to hear the details of that story. Taran fell into thought, their situation like a drowning man clutching a pole. Demian nodded without hesitation. Yes, Captain, my father told me. Meanwhile, a groan rang out. I'm sore all over. A man rubbed his head and moaned. Yesterday's mission drained me. In the next bed, Demian picked up a pillow and teased. Kyle, get up, General. He grimaced and groaned. All right, all right. At that moment, Varen burst through the door with news. Big trouble, everyone. Word is the Bronzerian forest has been sealed off. Starting today, not only herb gatherers, but even our lot are banned from entering. So we won't have missions coming up, just stay home and train. One man clenched his fists in excitement. Awesome, like winning the lottery. The other soldiers nodded in agreement. Anyway, we've all got injuries, so this forced downtime to rest is perfect. Kyle saw Demian sigh and asked, Demian, why the long face? Aren't you happy, kid? He replied sadly. Oh, it's nothing, it's great to get a break. After answering, Demian put his hands over his face, thinking. Given the unit's condition, this is prime time to heal, but why of all times does it happen now? Suddenly, a flurry of footsteps in the corridor caught Kyle's attention. Someone poked his head out to gawk. Who are those guys? Why did the defense force drag a body here? What's with those lazy old men coming over for? On this side, Gavin sat expressionless with his arms crossed in the middle of the room. Opposite him, Taran asked warily, What brings you here? He answered seriously. Thanks to your timely report, the Arcanum agreed to step in. They say they really sensed a foul taint from that monster's corpse. Taran pursed his lips and thought. So everything that Kid Demian said was spot on. Could the Bronzerian forest really be tied to Makai? Gavin shook his head. But nothing is certain yet. That's why they sent an official to coordinate with us for a sweep. His suggestion made Taran uneasy. This is unfamiliar territory, so I want to bring a soldier who knows about Makai. He offered a reason to refuse. That lad is a fresh recruit, wet behind the ears. Letting someone with no real combat experience come along would be. Before he finished, Gavin cut in. But after all, wasn't he the one who noticed the problem first? Taran hesitated. That, he worried silently. If I refuse, he'll surely find a way to make trouble for the unit later. Finally, Taran made a decision. He glanced and called, Aaron, the young man replied at once. Here. Meanwhile, while Demian was sulking, a voice called out. Send that Demian here. The scene opened on the sturdy walls of a towering military fortress, where the kingdom's faded glory still lent the air a solemn dignity. The view quickly shifted inside as Demian, a young red-headed recruit, strolled into the Grand Command Center. His plain gear, no armor to speak of, immediately drew puzzled glances from the heavily armed guards on duty. Approaching the massive wooden table, Demian stood before Taran. The veteran officer outlined a difficult new mission with a stern face, stressing the recruit had every right to decline the dangerous call-up. But without a second's hesitation, Demian volunteered eagerly. Behind that eager front, a sharp, calculating glint flashed in his eyes. He fully understood that joining this risky sortie was the best chance to track down a specific monster, infected by wicked Makai. Completely stunned by the kid's disturbingly fearless enthusiasm, the old commander had to relent, agreeing to set an official schedule and allowing him to step back. The scene cut to the dusty yard, just outside the giant gate of the fortress. Still uneasy about the recruit's reckless confidence, the stubborn commander pressed him one last time, earnestly requesting an escort of seasoned veterans to accompany the expedition. With a haughty smile, calm to the point of chill, Demian flat-out refused the offer of aid. In his heart, he coldly calculated that dragging along slow old veterans would only ruin his chance to bolt like lightning if the mission suddenly went to hell. With an exasperated sigh, the commander's face went grim as he issued a stern, ironclad order. Under no circumstances is the new recruit allowed to join actual combat. Pretending to be utterly innocent, Demian gently brushed off that serious warning. He playfully promised he'd only gather a few mana-restoring herbs for the squad and then return unharmed, then confidently strode straight toward the perilous wilderness. Left behind in dust, the commander stood dumbfounded with his men, eyes fixed on the retreating figure, whispering in utter bewilderment at the appearance of this unpredictable, insane variable. The scene cut immediately to the mist-shrouded edge of the Bronzerian forest. A large battalion, armed to the teeth, pushed deep into the treacherous woods, an impressive formation specially assembled to hunt a banned dark maid. Leading the vanguard was Captain Vaisal of the Urkel Guard, stern and serious, alongside the mysterious cleric Claire from the Adelant Temple. The silent, tense march was suddenly broken when Captain Vaisal caught sight of the red-headed rookie Demian, acting all cocky. The veteran captain aggressively confronted the kid, expecting immediate obedience, but Demian coldly cut him off. With a half-smile of sarcasm, the young soldier completely ignored the veteran's authority, ruthlessly declaring that because they belonged to two entirely different units, the captain's rank meant nothing to him. Hearing this, Vaisal shot back, "But I'm an officer." Demian paid little mind and replied, "Don't be so stiff. I'll cooperate fully anyway, so don't worry." Vaisal ground his teeth in anger and muttered about this crazy kid. Witnessing the oddly disrespectful exchange, Cleric Claire's attention was immediately drawn to this fearless recruit, and she asked Vaisal about him. As the captain, fuming, revealed that this kid was the first to raise the alarm about Makai in the area, Claire's bright golden eyes narrowed, starring with scrutiny. Gliding up to the young soldier, the holy cleric nearly cornered him. Stepping close to Demian, Claire asked, "Are you sensing something?" Hearing someone address him, Demian turned and asked if she was the cleric. Claire continued her questioning. "I heard you were the first to suspect Makai. May I ask you a few questions?" Demian, having nothing to hide, answered, "Of course." Demian's eyes narrowed slightly as Claire bluntly asked how he knew it was Makai. Sensing the other's probing gaze, Demian couldn't help but be cautious, unsure if she suspected him. After arranging his words, Demian replied calmly, "I heard it from my late father. He encountered something similar." Hearing this, Claire, a bit surprised, asked if he could tell the details. Demian asked Claire if she'd examined the corpse. Quickly, Claire confirmed she had, along with the high priest. Demian's expression turned serious as he spoke. "I know most of the monsters in Bronzerian Forest, but that one was the first I've ever seen in my life. It had no intelligence and black spots on its skin, so I think it was struck by Makai." Claire asked skeptically if he learned this from his father. Demian nodded in confirmation. Claire greeted him and left after hearing his answer. Then Claire stepped up to Vaisal and said, "Perhaps we should push a little deeper." Hearing that, Vaisal shouted to the ranks, "Advance deeper and report anything suspicious immediately." The heavy footfalls of the troop echoed through the forest. Demian silently slipped back to the edge of the formation. He reasoned the regular soldiers could handle basic scouting, but he knew he had to push further in to intercept his real target. Suddenly, a guard spotted Demian hunched in the thick underbrush and panicked, shouting to the others that a monster might be lurking. Weapons were drawn at once, but the alarm quickly turned to annoyance when they realized Demian was happily digging up a rare mana root. Feeling utterly ridiculous, the guards reddened with embarrassment and angrily barked at the new recruit, asking if he thought this was a picnic in the woods. Demian's innocent look vanished instantly. He threw the shouting guard a cold, deadly glare, warning him chillingly that flapping his mouth everywhere would soon earn him a grave. He calmly reminded the angry soldiers that searching was their job, not his. What was wrong with what he just did? The guard shouted back, "It's because of you the whole squad jumped. Don't do things that hinder the search." Demian mercilessly mocked their cowardly reaction. He pointed out that if a rustling bush could make them tremble, their pathetic skill was smearing the reputation of the entire guard. Before the furious guard could retort, Captain Vaisal stepped straight into the quarrel to put it out. He sternly scolded Demian for his impulsive behavior, warning the boy not to do anything else that could ruin the search operation. Playing the cooperative rookie, Demian quietly agreed to stay in the assigned area. With an exasperated, weary sigh, the captain turned his back on the shaking new recruit, ordering his men to drop excess heavy gear and begin a careful sweep of the ground. The quiet search was suddenly torn apart as dense bushes convulsed violently. A swarm of glowing red eyes pierced the dark canopy, and alarm calls rang out as a horde of giant beasts poured from the forest edge. At first, the seasoned soldiers shrugged off the ambush with contempt. Seeing what looked like a pack of ordinary wild orco, they confidently drew weapons, expecting a quick, easy slaughter. But their cocky smiles were snuffed in an instant upon closer inspection. One soldier froze in horror at the sick black spots and blazing red eyes covering the creatures' bodies. The horrifying truth hit. These weren't normal beasts, but savage orco utterly twisted by malignant Makai. With a thunderous roar, a massive, corrupted beast lunged at the front line. Moving with unnatural speed, it closed the distance before anyone could react. A heavy blade swung down toward the frozen guard. Others shouted for him to fall back, but it was too late. The guard froze in terror, resigned to a gruesome death as the strike was simply too fast to dodge. Yet the killing blow never reached its mark. A shrill clash of metal rang through the forest as the heavy attack was perfectly parried. A loud shout rang out, "Snap back to your senses." All anyone could see was Demian, a burst of blazing mana swirling around him. As the rookie coolly asked the terrified veteran just how much longer he planned to smear the proud unit's reputation, with a touch of mockery.